young girl, Amanda McCready, goes missing in Boston. The case attracts widespread national media attention. Private investigator Patrick Kinsey and his partner Angie are hired by the child's aunt, Beatrice, to find her. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode, we'll be covering 2007's Gone Baby Gone, directed by Ben Affleck.
And gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of MPF Midnight Double Feature. Thank you so much for joining us here as we cover 2007's Gone Baby Gone, directed by Ben Affleck. You know, I guess they call themselves massholes.
Yeah, the world's most famous massholes.
Right, exactly. How you doing, man? Colin? My main man Colin, as always.
I'm doing good. Just a little stopped up, a little coffee. So if you guys hear me sniffle or something, please forgive me. But other than that, I'm doing fine.
That's good, man.
No, I was waiting for you to talk.
I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm going to have to go through this episode and edit out all your bullshit.
Yeah.
Now, there you go. There it is. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, again, thank you so much for joining us, guys. I'm excited to cover this movie. Colin, I don't know your thoughts on this at all, so I'm really keen to see where we go with this. This was my pick. Before we do dive into the nitty-gritty details of this movie, quick little couple of housekeeping things. Please follow us on our socials. They're right there in the show notes on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Any kind of support you can show us is amazing. We're just a tiny little independent podcast. We don't have the backing of Spotify or whatever all those goddamn fucking supporters that they have. And
ain't no Audible here.
Right, exactly. We didn't get paid $100 million to go exclusively to Spotify, aka Joe Rogan. That'll be amazing. And if you do want to support us financially, you can. Head to patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature to get a whole bunch of bonus episodes. I can't remember where we are now. I think we're on like 64 or something like that. I don't know. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, 60, 70.
Right. So if you sign up now, you get a whole bunch of episodes for just $5 a month. That's all you pay, $5 a month. And apparently it's worth it, according to our Patreon members.
Yeah.
It's not something that we can judge accurately, but we've had good feedback from our green room members, as we like to call them. So
yeah, our loyal Midnight Double Featurettes.
Right, exactly. Well, are they all females? Is that a thing? Is it like
no, you don't have to be a featurette to a female to be a featurette.
Okay. Well, they're all bitches anyway.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
They're all subs. No, I'm just
right. Anyway, patreon.com.
I meant subscribers. Not submissives. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure. It works both ways, baby. And also, one more piece of exciting housekeeping. Bad Crystal's coming back. Bad Crystal, a Breaking Bad podcast, is coming back. Thank you so much for your patience. We know it's been a very long time since we wrapped up season 2 of Bad Crystal. But it is officially coming back on February 6th, which is shortly after this episode drops. So, yeah, keen. And that'll release every fortnight and all the way up until the end of season 3.
I think the gap between our seasons is longer than the actual timeline of the show, actually.
Sure. Yeah. It was huge. There was a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff. But we're glad to be back. Glad to be back in the RV for Bad Crystal.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Stoked for that. And thank you so much for the people who listen to that podcast. Thank you so much for the support that you've shown that podcast. It's been amazing. Just even getting those messages of like, when's Bad Crystal coming back?
I know, that's so nice. That's so nice.
So
Thank you guys.
It's so sweet. All right. Well, that's it for the housekeeping. So see you guys. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
But no, Gone Baby Gone. This is a heavy movie. This is if this is your first time tuning into this podcast, this is my world. This is my genre. This is my kind of film. Like anytime we cover a movie like Seven or Prisoners or Gone Baby Gone, where it's like the world is bleak, like there's this bleak outlook on the world and the people around you. That's my bag. That's me. So it should come as no surprise that this is my pick. And honestly, man, like we'll talk about comments a bit later. Well, actually, something I want to change about this episode or the format of this episode is I want to read some of the comments up front. Because we got some pretty good listener comments for this episode, and I was like, you know what? Instead of just like relegating them to the back of the episode like the goddamn hooligans that they are, no, I'm going to shine a goddamn spotlight on these guys.
Sure, go for it.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good to me.
Nice. All right. Well, all right. Look, so listener comments, thank you so much for everyone for jumping on. Where you can post your comments about the movie is on the After Party. That's our Facebook group, the After Party. Firstly, I'm going to read Ollie Brooks's comment. So thank you so much for commenting, Ollie. He says, this is one of my favorite films and a bit of a, quote, hidden gem kind of film. I'd say it's Affleck's second best directed film after The Town. Oh, so the reason people are saying this is because I asked them, where do you rank this in his sort of like directorial efforts? And another question I asked, and we won't cover this right now. I'll hold this till the end. But another question I asked was, do you agree with Patrick's decision at the end of the movie? Why and why not? So we'll hold that to the end of the movie. The end of the podcast for that discussion when we get to that scene. But Ollie continues, he says, it's got a dark, gritty story like most of Dennis Lehane's books with a great cast, amazing score, and a good twist at the end. The opening title music and narration by Casey is perfect. Looking forward to hearing the review, guys. Thank you so much, Ollie.
Yeah, thank you.
That. Jessica Vizina, we know Jess, right? We've covered a movie with Jess. We covered Misery with Jess. We had her on the podcast. We know her outside of the podcast as well. I've met her physically, which is awesome. She used to be
very nice.
Yeah, she's cool. She used to be a host over at LSG Media. She says, I absolutely love this movie. I honestly love Ben as a director, and I always love how he treats the city of Boston in his movies. It always feels very real. Watching this, I'm like, quote, I know people like this. Jason Tick doesn't agree. So Jason says, I don't really, quote, get this one. I know it seems to be beloved. I was mostly disappointed. I thought the acting was great, and that's where my compliments kind of end for it. And then as someone not from the East Coast, perhaps that's my disconnect. But then I'm also not from the East Coast. So I don't know, Jason. I don't know if that's... But, maybe.
Right.
Jonathan Marginson, also part of the LSU Media Squad. He says, as a Massachusetts resident, this is the most Massachusetts movie there is. It's probably only rivaled by The Fighter and Manchester by the Sea, also starring Casey Affleck, by the way. Ed Harris is a force.
I got massive Fighter vibes from this, especially at the beginning. Absolutely massive.
100%. 100%.
I think the woman who plays Dottie, her friend, is one of the sisters. Like, he's going down there, man. He's talking to that fucking girl. I swear she's in The Fighter.
She looks rough.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the point, but yeah.
yeah. We'll get to it. He says, Ed Harris is a force and Amy Ryan is pitch perfect. If you come here, you'll run into a clone of her buying scratch tickets at Cumbies. And I had to ask. I was like, I'm gonna need hold on, Jonathan, hold up. I'm going to need a elaboration.
Cumby sounds like a Gumby made of cum.
Right, exactly. And he's like, it's a gas station convenience store chain. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, cool.
Okay.
Cumbies, Jesus Christ. That's like those convenience stores where it's just come and go. And it's just like, what? Why?
Right. That's like an Always Sunny when they talk about going to the Wawa. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck is a Wawa? And I'm like, oh, it's a store. Okay.
Yeah. Danielle Cutter, Green Room member, gracious Green Room member says, hate Ben Affleck, but love this movie.
Oh, no. Because I commented on
She's
that.
Got thoughts.
I said,
She's got thoughts.
Which is weird because I love this movie, but I hate Ben Affleck, which is not my real feelings on it. But I was like, that's pretty funny.
She's got thoughts on the Affleck brothers. But that's fine. I think we can talk about Casey a little later. I think he's got some allegations and some of them are substantiated.
I've only heard. I'm extremely ignorant to like that whole situation. I've never really watched. This might be my first like Casey Affleck movie I've watched. Honestly,
Okay. You've never seen Good Will Hunting? Well, I wouldn't say it's a Casey movie, but he's
never.
in it.
It's in my to do list.
Great film. Okay, and then I kind of like prompted a few questions. Oh, how could I forget, man? How could I forget Floyd motherfucking Fry, man?
Yes.
Floyd Fry. He says the town is easily number 1 for me, and then I probably give Argo the nod at number 2, just for rewatchability for me. But this is a fantastic movie, and I love this book. Here's a question: what is the best Dennis Lehane book to movie? And then he kind of like posted a sort of like a screenshot. So we can tackle this now. We can tackle this here. So Dennis Lehane books to movies. I'm going to read them out for you, Colin.
Okay.
All right, ready? So there's a movie called Live by Night that was directed by Ben Affleck. It's considered to be his only, quote, flop movie that he's directed.
Never heard of it, yeah.
I heard it's not good. Mystic River, obviously the Oscar darling from a while back, starring Sean Penn. Kind of a movie that's been looked down upon now a little. It doesn't have that sort of like status of like should this have been Best Picture?
Oh, kind of, yeah, like they do Green Book and stuff now. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I've never seen Mystic River either. Was that like 2004?
I remember liking it, but I did watch it quite a while ago.
Mystic River, because I mean, also like a lot of Sean Penn himself has had like a lot of awful PR these last few years.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's a 2003 film.
Okay. It was a big deal.
I remember watching it. It was, and I remember watching it, and I remember liking it. But I haven't seen it in a very, very long time. It won 2 Oscars. I can't remember which ones it won.
Is that Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, so Clint Eastwood, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Never used him.
So, 2 Oscars. So, Best Actor in a Leading Role, Sean Penn. Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Tim Robbins.
Okay.
And nominated for Best Picture. Shutter Island is probably my favorite in this entire. Yeah, Shutter Island is Dennis Lehane. I don't know if it's a short story or if it's a novel, but that's my favorite.
Still, already, that's an impressive repertoire of book to film.
Yeah, obviously, Gone Baby Gone. I've never heard of Moonlight Mile.
Neither have I.
No. The Drop is a Tom Hardy movie also starring Gandolfini.
Yes.
That I like that a lot.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that one.
And Boston Noir. I haven't heard of seeing that. But yeah, I think my favorite would be Shutter Island. If we're talking, to be honest, I haven't read any Dennis Lehane books. I don't know how to read.
No.
So,
I am reading Heat 2 right now.
You are?
Yes,
oh, dude,
yes.
where are you up to?
I am up to Chris at the Border. Maybe a little after that.
Okay. Okay, so it's still sort of like at the beginning.
Yeah,
but
definitely recommend that, listeners. Heat 2, the Michael Mann novel. It's pretty damn good so far. The audiobook is a little weird because the guy does the voices. So, like, when he talks,
I heard about this.
Hannah, he actually does the voice. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like I should be the one to make those decisions. Like, maybe in my head. Maybe in my head, it's not Al Pacino playing Vincent Hanna. You know, it's just those little things.
Right.
But, you know,
I read it anyway in his voice. Like, I read it in his voice.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. These
are sort of like pre-established characters. Yeah.
Right. I just want to have the freedom to, like, if I feel like changing it up or doing something different, like, I don't have to, like, stick to this because this person's, like, kind of being drip feeding this him. But yeah, great book so far.
Sure. No, it is. I'm about halfway through. It's bold. I think it's a very bold book. Like, the choices that are made. But it's fucking riveting. I can't remember the last time I read a book this quick. It usually takes me 8 or 9 years to finish a book. So
Jesus.
Yeah. All right, let's get to this movie. Thank you so much for commenting, everybody. Thank you so much for your thoughts. We will circle around to your to the moral discussion and what you guys sort of like contributed to the moral discussion. So thank you so much for commenting. But Gone Baby Gone is a movie that I discovered quite a while ago, not particularly in 2007, sort of like after the fact. and I was sort of like riveted by it. I think it was in high school. It was late high school. I think I was in 11th grade, and I was really like sort of blown away by the two big moral questions it asks. Obviously you've got the big climactic decision that Patrick has to make, but then he's also forced to make a decision halfway through the movie, sort of thing, when he kind of kills Corwin Earl,
right?
And it's just like, we will discuss that when we get to those moments. And I'm just like, but I've never seen anything like that in a movie before. Like especially the moment with Corwin Earl. At that point I'd never seen a scene like that. When he walks in and he notices, he clocks the masking tape and then the underwear in the sink and then the dead kid, and then the way Affleck decides to sort of cut that in like just sort of like he cuts to black and then he's like boom, we're on that shot with Corwin Earl and he gets shot and then boom, we're outside again, and it's just like that was awesome, man. And I think Ben Affleck's this is his debut, and there's nothing sort of like technically advanced happening in this movie. Like he's not doing these long takes or there's no like dazzling special directorial things that he's doing in this movie. But by the time you get to Argo, which is a Best Picture winner, you can definitely see his growth as a director. And this being his first movie, he just kind of like, to me, he knocked it out of the park.
I think he does a pretty good job for his first time around, for sure.
Yeah. I think the acting is awesome. I think like everyone across the board is fucking awesome. The music's great. The story is outstanding. We can't credit the filmmakers 100% for the story because it is a Dennis Lehane movie book as mentioned. But I think I've never seen. It does go into the territory of fantasy a little bit of like, come on, like, I mean, a police captain's never going to, kidnap a girl and
right.
It's never going to happen, but it is crime fiction, right? I mean, like it's created in a way to ask us these moral questions at the end, which is what the movie's going for. By the way, Ben Affleck has a movie coming out this year, and I can't wait for it. It's called Air, and it's directed by him.
Like HEIR or AIR?
AIR.
Okay.
It's a true story, and it's based on the guy who is trying to sign Michael Jordan to Nike.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I can't wait. And it's reuniting Matt Damon and Ben Affleck again, so can't wait. But yeah, talk to me about this movie. What do you think? Had you seen this before? Were you moved by it? Did it sway you at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of riding the fence on this one still because I just watched it for the first time a couple of hours ago. I'd never seen this before. Right. I've never really seen. I definitely think The Town is better than this, but I think this is an interesting. I don't know. It poses some interesting questions, but it's just a movie that fucking meanders. It fucking meanders everywhere, and it's like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this. And
it does roll on, sort of thing. Yeah.
This, I think they did fine for an hour and 50-minute long movie, which it does feel. It feels a hell of a lot longer than an hour and 50 minutes. This thing feels like 2.5 hours to me, and I feel like this would have been better as like the old school 90s 2-part miniseries. Bang bang, they do it in 2 nights and they're both 2 hours long. Like, give this thing the Zack Snyder Justice League treatment. Give it 4 hours to tell its story over the course of like 4 episodes, and I think it would probably structure and flow like a little bit better. But it's still pretty good. I like the performances a lot. I think Amy Ryan is just incredible. There's a reason she got nominated for an Oscar. I don't really care for Casey Affleck.
By the way, I want to think that this is like a sequel to The Office.
Yeah,
because they obviously talk about Nashua and stuff, and I'm just like, God damn it.
Yeah, when they said Nashua, I was like,
This is what happens when Michael Scott wears a holly down. Holly Flack's down. You know, she becomes a single.
Amanda is Michael Scott's kid.
Right.
She's like, I'd rather go to Boston and be a crack mule than fucking let you raise our kid.
That's what happened. You're talking about Casey Affleck, a very controversial figure.
He's all right. Yeah. You know, I don't know. He looks, I don't know. He's not awful, but he just doesn't really do it for me. And I like pretty much everybody else that's in this.
Ed Harris, dude.
Ed Harris does a great job. I think Ed Harris does.
Yeah.
Ed Harris doesn't half measure anything. Like he is a bit of a nut. Like when it comes to acting and stuff. Like he does not. He fucking sends it. Like Ed Harris is one of those actors that like doesn't fuck around. I always love seeing him in stuff. And you know, for the most part, I like the world that it kind of builds. I love this seedy kind of underground scene that's going on. But I just have like, and the guy that plays Ed Harris is the other detective. I guess he's a detective from Beverly Hills Cop, which he looks incredible for this to be 2007, and Beverly Hills Cop came out in '84. I was like, dude, he looks fucking great. Like looks like he's looked like 47 for
John Ashton is his name, by the way.
Yeah, John Ashton. He looks great even in this. He looks like Michael Keaton's older brother to me.
Yeah. I see that.
But I think they do a great job of casting, especially with the guy that plays the child molester that he shoots in the head. I think that guy is perfectly cast, like unbelievably. We've got Uncle Tuco's uncle. I can't remember his name.
Don Hector.
Yeah. That guy pops up in stuff all the time. He's a great actor, very distinguishable actor. But I don't know. I feel like about halfway through this movie, I went, Ed Harris is up to something. And I just was like, no, something's going on. And I was like, this goes beyond this drug deal and stuff. There's just something right away that I just didn't get a good feeling. They were trying too hard to make me kind of like him as a character. I don't know. There was something about that. We're like, I don't know. It's like we automatically trust these two cops. And in this kind of setting, in this background, in this world, is telling us not to trust anybody right off the rip. And that's why it gave me like a red flag. It's like, wait, so we're just supposed to trust that these cops are cool? Like in this David Fincher-esque world, these guys aren't dirty cops. These guys aren't, I just don't know. I don't trust the full world of what's going on. So I kind of knew something was up, but I didn't expect Morgan Freeman either. But like, I guess it doesn't surprise me because after everything kind of falls out and he ends up having to resign and take a half pension. I was like, well, God, he was only in this for 2 scenes. And I was like, but he's like, it says like starring Morgan Freeman. And I was like, something tells me he's coming back at the end of this for something. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, there we go. Now it makes a lot more sense because he was only in like 2 scenes. And then I was like, man, but I don't know. I feel like it would say featuring Morgan Freeman or like, and also Morgan Freeman, like it would have that little tag on. But it's okay, for a first time directorial debut. He's really playing with some fucking heavy hitters. Ed Harris, my God.
Michael K. Williams, dude, rest in peace.
Yes, I know. I saw him immediately at Ramby's funeral, and I was like, oh, Omar. I was like, holy shit.
Omar coming. Yeah,
but all in all, it's a pretty good movie. I mean, I don't think it deserves the 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. I would give it probably like a 70 or a 75. I think it just needs the editing is choppy in a few places. Like when he busts that guy in the face with the gun in the bar, it's like 4 shots in like half a second, and it's like it's really poorly.
It's first time directed things. Yeah,
yes, and it's like that's okay. It's not the end of the world. But I do like the fact that this guy as a character, kind of runs the line between the criminal world. He is the one he's like the daywalker. He can put a foot in both worlds. And I really enjoy that. He's kind of like a weirdly like a bit of Robert Graysmith and Zodiac mixed. Yeah. But Robert Graysmith never shot a pedophile in the back of the head, like he's like a more hardcore kind of thing, which by the way, I just don't understand how there's no repercussions from that.
No, those are the things that get to me. It's not the it's not the casting choices or anything like that that really bugged me about this movie. I actually really like the casting. I like the acting. Yeah, it's there will be forensics and ballistics pulled on this situation.
Yeah.
And this is an execution.
Yeah, right.
This
That's
is a
what I'm
straight up
saying.
execution. So, yeah, you kind of need to take it as this is not Prisoners or Severed. It's not on that type of level. It's trying to tell a more it's trying to tell a more macro story than it is a micro story. It's trying to ask these big heady questions, and it can't do that without scenes like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like for the big questions to be asked, it can't. It physically cannot ask those questions without the lead character executing someone in the middle of the scene.
That's
what
I'm saying. Like, all I needed was like a little thing of like Detective Ramy coming out and being like, "Hey, don't worry, give me the gun. We'll take care of this. Like, you did the right thing." Like, this is a guy who doesn't mind bending corners and or breaking rules and bending corners and stuff. So it's like I would totally find it believable. Ed Harris be like, "Nah, man. Hey, just give me the gun. We'll make all this go away." And that's all I needed. That's all I needed. But it was like, yeah, this is kind of strange. Nobody's like, "Oh, by the way, yeah."
Maybe they did. Maybe it was a backdoor kind of deal. You never know.
Right.
I mean, maybe they left some stuff out. Right.
Maybe just because the world
or maybe it was fleshed out in the book.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, this world is so seedy. I don't think that your brain, like, I think is like, I wouldn't even really call it a nitpick. It's a legitimate question, but I think this world, it kind of answers for itself and goes, of course he's not going to get in trouble. Like, it's like, this world is a shithole. Like, one less pedophile, these cops were probably like, it's like, who shot this man? It's like, I did. And like all the cops step forward and be like, I fucking did it. Like, I am Spartacus.
I am Spartacus.
Yeah. But all in all, it's pretty good. It's definitely heavy. I think the heaviness of the movie outweighs its quality. Like, like Prisoners, the quality outweighs the heaviness. And I feel like that what I watched was worth the weight of the morality behind it. And I just don't know if this one's worth the weight of that morality, but it's still a pretty good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I somewhat agree with the criticisms. I can't fully commit because I think I've never seen the question that the movie asked right at the end of the movie. With Patrick's decision, I've never seen something like that before. I don't think there is I'm sure there's a movie out there that's like that has a question like that of like, and it does such a good job of making us throughout the movie, making us question whether Patrick's choice was correct or not.
Right,
and sitting on the fence. Like it gives evidence to both sides. I can't wait. I can't wait for us to get to that moment. So I can't. Yeah, like that'll be a good conversation. But anyway, let's kick this off. Let's kick off Gone Baby Gone. We've got this sort of like opening monologue here from Patrick, and it opens with, "I always believed it was the things you don't choose that make you who you are." And he talks about his family. He talks about family. He talks about your city. And obviously all of these things sort of come into play as we sort of unveil this story. And it's the importance of childhood and where you grow up and where you were nurtured and, what your how your nature feeds into your nurturing. But basically this environment is important to show. It's important for Affleck to show us and to detail and describe this environment that young Amanda grew up in or grows up in, for us to be able to question the captain's motives at the end. But yeah, we're given these shots of these Boston locals. It's a rundown suburb. Is this Dorchester? This is Dorchester, I think.
I believe so.
Boston. Dorchester, Boston, and like the paint's chipping from all their houses. It looks like it's on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, right?
Right.
People here take pride in these things. The bodies around the souls. The city is wrapped around those. It's a good opening, man. I really like this because it really kind of like puts you in a time and place. It really kind of like puts you in the shoes of like someone like Casey's character, and is like, this is where we're telling our story. We're not telling the story out in the city. We're not telling us this story out in the suburbs where the people are rich. We're not telling a story out in Bel Air, fucking LA, you know?
Right.
This is, but here's another thing as well. In my experience, people from these kinds of areas, on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, they tend to be more genuine. They tend to be more like there's no okay. So I'm not saying that I grew up in an area like this. Yeah, there's no fuckery, you know.
Right.
I'm not saying I grew up in an area like this, but I grew up in a postcode like this. There is a suburb in our postcode, also currently called Mount Druitt. I've talked about this plenty of times. It's considered one of the worst suburbs in Sydney, just because there's a lot of rampant crime. There's a lot of housing developments, so government housing.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. I went to school in that suburb. You do get to meet a few people who are rough around the edges.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kids, and sometimes they're not all. Sometimes they're not all the friendliest people, but
Sure.
you yourself eventually get to sort of figure out how to navigate your way around them, sort of thing. You figure out how to deal with them. You figure out how to speak with them or act around them, and what to say and what not to say.
Yeah,
sure, absolutely. But then you also meet quite a few people who are like, they don't fuck around. They don't have time for games. Like, I work in the city, right? So I go to work, and for years I've been working in the city, and quite often you meet people who are, they're very different. They're people who don't wear their hearts on their sleeves, and they're not honest, and and I just feel like that, like a lot of the times when you're in a suburb like this, people are much more genuine and are much more front facing and are much more forthcoming with things. That's my take, but
sure.
I don't know.
I guess it depends on what it is and who it's to,
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, now that we've established that I'm a fucking poor person, but no. Anyway, so we're going through this opening. I think it's a beautiful opening. And then we kind of like pan down, and sorry, I just in my headphones, I just heard the line, "This city can be hard."
Yeah, that does. After about 12 minutes of that, I'm like, all right, this is getting a little annoying.
Yeah. So we're establishing Casey's character as well. He finds people who fall through the cracks. Casey as well. This was the first movie I'd seen Casey Affleck in, and I think he's well cast, to be honest. I think he's got this softness, like he's a softie, and it's required of the person playing Patrick to be soft. There needs to be that sort of vulnerability as well. Even the way that he talks, it's soft. But then the part that I buy a little less is his rough around the edges part, where he pulls out a gun and the guy at the fucking bar, and I'm just like, I don't know if I see that from Casey, but
right, yeah, calm down, David Byrne, like this, like fucking talking heads looking motherfucker. Yeah, I think he's got this boyish naivety to him that works pretty well. That like, it's like he's kind of got that Captain America mentality of just this like, no, right is right and wrong is wrong, and it's like, yeah, not quite though.
Sure. But yeah, we see these news crews, whatever. Basically, there's a missing kid, Amanda McCready, and it's her aunt being interviewed. She looks like a hard woman, by the way. B.
Oh yeah,
she's like
she's in Field of Dreams. She's great in Field of Dreams.
Oh, that's a Kevin Costner baseball movie. I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's pretty damn good.
Okay, I believe you. She says we won't charge you, and I'm like, B, I don't know if that's your decision to make, but
Yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah,
this
I don't think that's up to you at that point.
Sure.
She runs for DA and wins. No, I'm not charging them.
We're not charging them. We're not charging. Someone who I liked in this movie is Michelle Monaghan. She plays Casey's. She plays Angie.
Oh, okay.
So she's kind of like a little subdued, but I kind of like her moments, and especially the choice of a character at the end to just straight up leave because she can't get on board with Patrick's decision.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff here from Michelle, but anyway, you've got. I keep saying Amy Ryan. What's her name again?
Holly. No, I'm just kidding. Helene.
Helene. Oh, you know what? You know how confusing that is, especially because like Michael Scott dates someone named Helene, which is Pam's mom, right? Pam's is that?
Oh
is that
yeah. I think it is Helene.
Yeah, so it fucking confuses the shit out of me. But yeah, they're watching this on TV, and it's tough for them. And then we see Morgan Freeman's character giving an interview, and Morgan Freeman. So for the longest time, I thought that he was sort of like the captain of the entire force, but that's not correct. He's kind of like the captain of this.
He's like the SVU for kids, right?
Yeah, he's kind of like the captain of this one division. He's kind of giving this press conference, and he mentions that it's the high priority for him to get Amanda back. Why are you laughing?
I would just love. He's like, in 19 days, a meteor will strike Earth the size of Texas. Yeah, I am
God.
I was laughing because the woman doing the reporting was like, and Amanda's mother Helene says that Amanda is carrying a child of her own, and I was like, what? And she's like, it's a stuffed doll named Mirabelle, and I was like, okay, very poor wording, by the way. Do not say she's carrying a child. Like, Jesus Christ.
Phrasing. But one important sort of plot point that is mentioned here is that the captain lost a daughter. Right.
Mm-hmm. Which is I think that factors a shit ton into what happens at the end.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But then the next day we get a knock at the door, and it's B and God, who does Titus tell? Lionel McCready. So it's B and Lionel McCready, and Titus Welliver, man.
Goddamn,
that is a soup strainer for the ages.
Yeah, I think it's what I love because it feels very natural. He's got this very blue collar kind of Boston thing going on. He is one of the most natural characters in this whole thing to me. He was one of the, I would say probably next to Amy Ryan, one of the best performances. I think he just absolutely knocks it out of the park. He
is such a prolific actor. Like, he pops up in so many things, man. Like, he was in The Town for a little bit. He's in Argo. Yeah, he does a shitload of TV. He was in X-Files, Law and Order, Suits. I think he was in Lost from memory.
What was he in X-Files?
X-Files? 1994. The episode called Darkness Falls.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Doug Spinney. I don't think it was a recurring role, but yeah, like he just pops up in everything, man. This guy. But essentially, B wants to hire these two to, quote, augment the investigation, right? Which is an interesting word.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Because, but also another important sort of like point here is that B kind of is going a little maverick here, right? She's
pulling wild card.
Yes, it's important to note that she's kind of taking this into her own hands because Helene's not doing anything. She's just sitting on her ass, just hoping that she comes back. And Lionel, very importantly to the plot, says that no, we shouldn't have done this, right? But the woman that plays B is outstanding, especially here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she seems like she's tough as iron.
Sure. But yeah, man. So they they kind of talk it over. They're very hesitant to take this on because, I mean, look, it's pretty fucking heavy, man. You could be, at the end of this line, you could be finding the body of a child.
Right. It's a
and-
realistic thing. She is, hey, we need to put this on the table. We might find a fucking dead kid here,
Sure.
I never, I was watching a West Memphis 3 documentary.
Oh, Paradise Lost?
Maybe. I think it might have been one of them, but they straight up show those kids. And I was like, whew, yeah, even just from a third party, filmed through a thing like that is still a brutally shocking thing to see.
Yeah. Angie is very rightly saying that, look, before we take on cases like this, we need to discuss it, right? We need to discuss this in private.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick says, look, the least we can do is just go over and talk to Amanda's mum, right?
Right.
So they head over and talk to me about Amy Ryan as Amanda's mother here. I mean, she's terrible. She's a terrible person, man.
Yeah, she's pretty bad. At first, I thought she was Gail the Snail from Always Sunny for half a second. Just for a second, though. I can't remember what that comedian's name is, but they come to talk to her, and she's just mellowed out on the couch watching Jerry Springer or something, But yeah, it is kind of like this. She is a terrible person, She is this awful. But in her own right is a weird, it's like a weird victim in all of this as well. Like she obviously ripped off drug dealers and does this awful stuff, but in a weird way, somebody takes advantage of her situation in regards to that and uses it as an excuse to kind of start this whole thing up. So I don't know. It is a moral conundrum kind of. That she had this whole life and she made just every fucking wrong decision, and I get it. I think this movie, the argument for this whole movie that it hinges upon one question is can people really change? And, if they can, then this movie is very hopeful, but if they can't, then this movie is DOA.
But I think it answers its own question at the end, right? I mean, we'll get to the end to discuss whether she did change, but I think there is an answer that it could have left ambiguous, and it kind of does to a point, but yeah. I think you're on the money there. But here, at this scene, we're kind of finding out a bit more about Helene's sort of habits, right? She drinks, she does coke. I mean, how many times is a lot? A few times a week is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But we're also finding out more information about Lionel here. And by the way, I don't want to also, this is one of those movies where, again, there's a twist, and there's clues pointing to certain things that happen in the movie. I don't want to go through this podcast pretending that we don't know the answer, because we do. We've seen the entire film. So we're just going to point out things, that indicate the plot. One of them being here, right? Fucking Lionel's talking about how he used to be a drinker. He spent some time in the clink. He's now 20-something, 26 years sober.
Yeah, 23 years sober.
Yeah. But it seems like a bit of a brag when he says it. It's just I myself am 23 years sober.
Yeah, he talks about the disease and how it ran through the family and stuff.
Sure. And then we're introduced to Captain Jack Doyle in the flesh, right? He comes over, he's looking around the scene, and obviously there's a little bit of static between the private investigator and the captain of the police, right?
Yeah. And once you figure out what's going on, it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense.
It absolutely does. The little looks and things like that. Morgan Freeman, I mean, we've talked about it before in Seven and so many other things. I mean, the guy, he's just such a presence. As soon as he enters this scene, he's just such a presence. if we don't catch the predator by day one, only 10% of the cases are solved. This is day 3. Obviously, for his own purposes, he's trying to sort of augment the investigation himself.
Sure.
I'm starting to plant doubt. The seeds of doubt in other people's heads. But also being the police captain says, kind of like positioning his sort of like angle in terms of like, yeah, you know what, we're going to do whatever it takes to find this girl. But yeah, so Jack Doyle begrudgingly allows Patrick to come along and observe. He's going to appoint 2 police officers to sort of help him out with this investigation. Yeah, apparently it's part of Massachusetts law. Like this.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Drops. Well, yeah, he says here. Yeah, he says here. You know, it's Massachusetts law that, you know, if the family have hired someone to help with the investigation, then Boston police or Massachusetts police must help or assist.
Yeah, that is interesting because, I mean, I guess there's just things that as police they can't do that you can, and vice versa, as a private citizen, you know?
Yeah. There's definitely things like, and we'll, you know, we'll talk about a bit later, the things that the police can do. That
I think my headphones disconnected there for a second, so it might have picked you up in the room, but that was so weird. It just went like, doom! I was like, what the fuck was that? And then all of a sudden you started talking through the phone.
That's all right. Yeah, you did sound weird for a second.
Yeah, it was only a sec.
Then we're in this bar, right? In this sort of like situation. We find out from this guy, dude, Big Dave, by the way, is what the bartender wants to be called. Big Dave.
Big Dave.
A medium Patrick.
Patrick. Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm Topher Grace.
By the way, you know what I was watching the other day? I was watching Ocean's 11, which I fucking love. I love that movie. And at the beginning, because it's Topher Grace like playing himself with like a bunch of other actors. I think Chris O'Donnell's there and stuff. And Brad, sorry, I just fucking killed a mosquito. That's kind of where we're fucking dealing with here. But anyway, look, whatever. Patrick notices Steve, this guy Steve, the Grecian formula, he calls him. And he's kind of like this, I guess a regular, and he is able to attest that Helene, I've been watching too much The Last of Us, so Marlene's kind of like, but yeah, he's talking about Helene being here when she was actually saying to the police that she was across the street at Dottie's house, right? She was actually here bumping rails with this guy, Ray.
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting. Like right away, we kind of get the story is rotten like an onion. You know, there's a lot of different layers to it. There's a lot of different stuff going on. But then I also don't understand why everybody in this bar is looking at them like, you know, like they just walked in with 3 eyes on their forehead. You know, like everybody is giving them and I was like, dude, I feel like the story's going to come out that they like chopped this little girl up and ate her at the bar or something, because everybody in this bar is acting like there's this big secret, and then it never really comes back why everybody in this bar is so fucking hostile.
Here's the thing though. I thought about that at first, but then now I'm just like, okay, but if Helene is a regular here and this guy he's talking shit about her. Like, he's just straight up like saying, yeah, she was over here bumping rails when she should have been looking after her daughter. I mean, if she's as much of a regular at this bar, you know, people aren't going to take that lightly. That's just my thoughts on it.
I guess so. Like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like this almost is just kind of like, okay, we need to show that Patrick can kind of get rough when he needs to get rough. Yeah, hold his own. And I don't know. I kind of feel like, I don't know. There needs to be more of a reason for this guy to step in. I was like, I feel like somebody in this room is one of the people responsible. I immediately thought that. I was like, okay, something is going on in here, but he just doesn't like the fact that he's talking to a private investigator, which is, I guess, makes enough sense. But at the same time, like, what does this guy give a shit? Like, wouldn't he want this little girl to be found? Like, I don't know. It just seemed like a weird kind of excuse. And they like locked the bar door, like they're not going to let him leave. And I was like, okay, this is a little too okay. Like this just escalated way too quickly, that like they're locking you in the bar, like they're gonna rape her, they're gonna murder you, and I'm like, over what? Because you're asking questions about something they're not even involved with. I was like, this seems really stupid. And
it's Boston, it's the hood. Okay.
I just wish there had been more personal of a reason. Like, this guy is one, I don't know, because they were talking about how they would have CIs, and they would pay him $100 at 8-ball or something. And I was like, I would love if this was one of the guys who like, no, I'm one of Remy CIs, and like I look out for him because he keeps my fucking pockets filled. Even that is more than enough for me. But it's just, I don't know, it just felt really strange.
It does escalate to the point of what the fuck, like absurdity.
Right.
Like the locking of the doors, the indication that she's going to get raped, which is pretty fucking wild.
Right.
But again, I'm not. It doesn't surprise me that if Helene is as much of a regular as she's made out to be at this bar, then people are going to want to protect her sort of reputation. They wouldn't take likely to her reputation being tarnished like this. But yeah, again, I think the actions go too far.
Yeah, for sure.
We're also introduced at this cafe to Detective Sergeant Remy Croissant, I'm going to call him.
Dude looks great, man.
Oh, dude, looks good. Played by Ed Harris, sporting a great fucking goatee, man.
Hell yeah,
great
dude.
Fucking goattee.
I love him in Black Ops, but he would fit perfect in like Cold War. Is like is like, I don't know. He just has like that double crossing kind of look to him. I was really surprised when the other cop was in on it. Fred, I can't remember. Nick. Okay. I was really surprised when Nick was involved with it, because he is the one absolutely playing good cop to Ed Harris's bad cop. And I was actually kind of heartbroken when he was in on it. It's like, really? I was like, damn, man. I was hoping he was just kind of like an innocent bystander. But yeah, these guys are really, like the fact that they were so likable right off the bat did kind of make me a little suspicious. Like, this movie's trying to make me like these guys a little bit too much, like they're the unsung heroes, like these four or the horsemen that are going to solve it. And I was like, no, I trust the private investigators because they have nothing to gain and nothing to lose. But these police, I don't know, who knows how far these routes run with them, especially in Boston and stuff. You have cops, they just have that whole fraternal order of bullshit that they just always watch each other's backs and always keep their mouth shut and stuff. So it's like immediately I'm just like, I don't know, man. I just kind of a little untrustworthy.
Yeah, I mean, like that's with police everywhere, right? I mean, in Australia there was this thing called the Catholic Mafia. Yeah, I know you're giving me this look. It's a whole thing. It's tied to the church. Yeah, it's tied to the church. It's all police conspiracy. Yeah, there's that happened in Victoria.
I'll check that out
during the 80s. Yeah, there's a case file episode on it if you just want a quick hit about it.
Okay, cool. Word.
Yeah, just
Hear
Google
it from a local.
Yeah, type it in into your Spotify. Just type in the Catholic Mafia or just Catholic Mafia case file, and you'll find the episode. It's wild. It's great. It's a great listen. But anyway, so Croissant and Paul here sort of, they're very quick to offer up Corwin Earl and Leon Trett and these sort of like three guys, right? These three individuals. By the way, that woman, she's seen better days, man. Like, I don't.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah.
Is that Brendan Fraser in The Whale? I can't tell, man. Just Jesus.
Well, I always feel bad for people like this. Like, the casting notes was like, yeah, we need someone who looks like a big fucking fat slob, and she's like, ba ba da da, and
we're gonna spray you down with sweat.
Yeah, we're gonna spray you down with like Crisco oil and Old Orange juice, and fucking make you like. She just looks awful, man, and like the other two guys. I mean, imagine the guy who plays the pedophile. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm sure somebody on that set was like, dude, you are pitch perfect, and he's like, thanks. That's kind of gotta suck.
Look, man, the guy just wants to get paid, all right?
Right, yeah. But the fact that they offered these guys up like right away, is kind of like a sacrifice, like, oh, this didn't work. Then they tried cheese, and then they tried these other. It's like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing now in retrospect.
Right. But there is obviously some friction between Brisant and Patrick. You can go back to reading your Harry Potter book because he's so young looking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very young looking.
I think he mentions that he's 31 years old, and I love there's a moment where Angie's just like, he looks younger.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they offer up Ray Lekansky, and the cops have never heard of Ray Lekansky, right? Like this is new territory to them. They're like, what the fuck is this? Who's Ray Lekansky?
Supposedly.
And yes, supposedly. But yeah, they go and interview. Well, actually, no. There's a moment with this one character, played by I guess he's Ben Affleck's friend. I know
this drug dealer.
Yeah, he's in the town as
guy.
well. Yeah, he's in the town.
This guy does not feel like an actor to me. Like this guy feels like someone they pulled. Like I don't know if Dottie is an actor. Like I think she might be a local like kind of thing. Like, but I love this guy. And the fact that, even as a drug dealer, he's like, there's a reason why there's not 3 inches of plexiglass between you and I right now. I don't fuck with people like Helene. I'm like, that's cool.
He goes by Slane, this guy. He's an American rapper and actor born in Boston. Yeah, wow. Okay.
He's extremely natural in this to me. And he's immediately kind of like likable. He's like, yeah, I sell drugs, but I don't fuck around with child molesters and shit.
Sure.
Man.
Yeah, that's like a whole different ballgame, man.
Right. He's like, I don't sell to fucking, crazy ass people that are going to get me popped or something like that. Mm-hmm. I just immediately like this character. I was like, man, he's just very charismatic, and I was really drawn to him. I was like, interesting, like this, like you wouldn't think this like drug dealer would be one of the most likable people in the movie, because he actually kind of just wants to do the right thing, like sure. He actually contacts Patrick later about that house, and I was like, that's so like out of he gains nothing from doing that. Nothing at all from bringing Patrick on that ride. He just does it for the right reasons. And I was like, I love that.
That's another reason why I kind of dig this movie. There are these shades of like, the cops, sometimes the cops can be bad, sometimes the criminals can be good, but like there's this real like sort of like honesty to it, because no drug dealer wants to get wrapped up in this child abduction
That's what I'm
case
saying.
or child
he has everything
case,
to lose and nothing to gain.
Absolutely. But he offers up Cheese as a name, right? And then, dude, I love the cut. How well do you know Cheese John Baptiste? And then it cuts to Brisant. How well do you know Cheese John Baptiste?
That is cool. I did like that.
Yeah. But she's being a smart ass. Oh, sounds familiar. He is, man. Ed Harris is terrifying. He's a terrifing guy.
Well, yeah.
He's a scary guy.
I do want to go.
He's got fucking VX rockets pointed right at San Francisco if we don't curtail him.
He's the rocket man. No, that's Tony Todd. There is something interesting about a line that Helene says here whenever they have to work her over and get this kind of information out of her. And she ends up kind of spilling the beans that she's a drug mule for Cheese and that she's involved with him and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But the fact that they talk about her doing drugs, and he's like, heroin. And he's like, yeah, not if you snort it, right? And she's like, yeah, it's less addictive that way. And it's like, there is a weird line of self-preservation in that, of like, I don't want to become some drugged out junkie bitch. Like, even as low as she is, there is still somehow a lower hell for her to drop to. And the fact that like she does have some kind of self-control in that sense of like, I'm not going to put the shit right in, because then it'll be over for me. Like there's no coming back. And there is some kind of weird self-preservation in that line that like, if I do that, then then I might as well kiss my kid goodbye, because I'm not going to be here to like take care of him and stuff. I don't know. There's something about that. It was a weird line that kind of went past me. Like, because a totally drugged out, I don't give a fuck person doesn't, they'll do it the hardest way to do it if that's what hits them the best. So the fact that she's actually like not getting as much bang for her buck when she buys these drugs and stuff, like I'll actually do it in a less efficient way because I just don't want that shit to fuck me up. Like, you know, in that way, it's less addictive. I'm like, holy shit, that's a weirdly like forethinking kind of way for someone who's snorting heroin. I don't know. It was just so, it was very hypocritical and also just kind of like, man, I don't know. Just a crazy line. I think it just kind of blows by you when you first watch it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't clock that, and I've seen this a bunch of times, but it kind of goes to this idea that, yeah, of perspective, right? I mean, like, to her, that's not doing, shooting it up being more addictive. That is, she's got a daughter to think about, right? Like, that she might have considered her daughter when she made that decision to not shoot up, you know? Again, it's just a matter of perspective. Like, to her, that's incredibly serious. Whereas, like, to everyone else, you're still doing heroin.
Right,
you know?
right. Real quick, B is not Helene's sister. Helene's brother is Lionel.
I had to track this as well. So B is the in-law.
Sister-in-law. Okay, yeah. Right, okay. Because at the end, she sells and gets the fuck out of there. That's why. That's right.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So, oh, dude, when she drops the line, why don't you go suck an N-word's dick?
Dude, Jesus Christ.
I'm just like, whoa. And obviously, you know, Lionel doesn't take kindly to this. You listen to me, you don't disrespect my wife. This, again, also comes back into it in the end. You know, this is good stuff. I like this drama. This is hard drama.
But you wouldn't know that because God made you fucking barren. You are an abomination. Like, good God.
That is such a great retort, man. I struggle to think of a bigger insult than you are an abomination. Like,
right.
You know,
right? Yeah, it's pretty good line.
Yeah. But yeah, there's something also that I really love about this scene is B not really understanding the like kind of like the slang, right?
Yes.
Mule and things like that. She's just like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah. She goes and grabs herself a beer in the middle of this. Like,
priorities, you know.
Priorities. What's she drinking?
I don't know. It looks like Miller High Life, maybe? I don't know. Probably not that fancy.
Some kind of piss. But anyway, she eventually gives it up, right? She's like, you know, we went on this trip to Nashua. Sorry, just Nashua of all places. Like, it had to be Nashua. Come on.
Right.
Come on, Dennis. Come on, Dennis. Yeah, and you know, we went to deliver to these truckies. They gave us the cash, and then as we were walking away, they got raided by the cops, and Ray and I managed to make out with the money. And how much money? And dude, I love, as Ed Harris is asking this question, how much. He's so adamant. He's really pushing her, even though this isn't a super important question. Right?
Right.
How much doesn't really, in the factor of things, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it could be 10 grand, it could be $1 million. She still stole from a drug dealer, and he's potentially, you know, getting reprisal.
Right. Yeah. I think the higher the number, the worse it is for sure. You know, but like, so getting her to admit $130,000 is like, Jesus Christ, man. You know, you ripped off a drug dealer for $130K. Like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. So now the thinking is that Cheese kidnapped Amanda as reprisal for the money.
How do you know Ray didn't spend all the money? Oh, N-word, please. I buried it. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Good God.
Dude, she's so good. So we're driving to Nashua, and then she's kind of like got this moment of she's kind of got this speech of like, you know, you didn't think it was worth it for your daughter's sake to tell people what happened, and it's just like she's kind of like brushing it off. But man, Amy Ryan's good. She's also in The Wire as well. She's in the second season. She's also fantastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's so good. Then we get to is this Nashua? No, this isn't Nashua. This is Nashua is where they ripped off the bikers.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what suburb this is. Sorry, Massachusetts is a fucking weird place. All right, they got weird names there. But who do we find?
Layaway Ray. Fucking dead as day.
Dude, he got
pretty brutal.
Fucked.
This movie's not gory, it's not violent, but the brushes of that kind of violence are pretty clear. You know, they don't pull any punches. You see a child's dead body, like you see a man who's tied to a chair and beaten and shot in the chest. Like, it looks pretty goddamn enough that it sends Helene out of the room. I think this is a major kicking point for Helene, where she realizes
this is real. Yeah.
Right. Now this is what who kills Ray? If it's not Cheese and all this stuff, I assume it's Rami.
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say it's Rami. It's Brisson. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Brisson. Yeah. Is that his name, Rami Brisson?
Yeah.
Okay. That I kept thinking his last name, Detective Rami.
French as fuck.
Yeah, Brisson. I mean, I assume that he's wrapped up in this conspiracy that Ray was murdered over, and I don't know. Like, did they do this to make it look like Cheese did it, just to kind of throw him off the trail, or were they actually trying to get some kind of info?
Yeah, I think so, because when they asked Cheese a bit later, I mean, obviously he doesn't admit to it, but see, it's interesting. It's tough to read at that moment because Cheese is tough to read because you don't know whether Patrick's wearing a wire or not. You know, you don't know what his reactions are genuinely. But I think that, Ray was killed by Brisson to make it look like Cheese because they're using Cheese as a scapegoat. Okay,
gotcha. That makes sense. But I'm watching in the background, so I'll keep an eye out if they throw anything else up.
Okay. But yeah, so Helene's got the money buried in the backyard. Everything you need is in your backyard. Have you heard that saying? So another big tip-off is that when Angie suggests, okay, now we call the FBI because we're technically dealing with kidnapping here.
Yes.
Remy is very quickly says, no, this is just a missing persons. This is not a kidnapping. We're dealing with this by ourselves.
Right.
There's no logical reason to do that. There's no logical reason to downgrade it as a. What do you think?
Well, because he is. It makes me think of that Futurama meme. You are technically correct, the best kind of correct. Like, technically, he is correct. There is no ransom note. Like, this is not officially, like, even though we know that you know that we all know that blah blah blah. This is what's going on. Until it's said out loud, they're really this is not officially is what's going on. Now, they're basically doing it without doing it. And I think he is correct to a degree. If we escalate this, there is a chance if this goes federal and we don't just play with these people in our backyard and try to control things, because if we take this to a federal level, then Cheese knows that there's no coming out for him. This is a guy who's probably got multiple priors, multiple weapons, multiple drugs. There's no way that this is going to end well for him. So I can see them trying to de-escalate. Like, it does not matter. What do we do? Are we keeping the $130,000 or are we getting the girl back? Fuck the $130,000. Everybody agrees. Fuck the money at this point. Let's just get rid of it. Try to right her wrong, but then there's no guarantee that Cheese isn't going to come back and blow Helene's fucking head off. Like, there's at this point, given what they think is happening, there's no reason to think that it doesn't matter that you got the money back. Yeah, he might even give you your daughter back, but that doesn't mean you're going to live to see her. I could have totally seen it from that degree. Like, maybe you do want to get federally involved at that point. There are a couple. It can go kind of either way, but I'm more so, towards keeping it on the DL because the louder this gets, the worse it's going to be for Amanda.
Yes and no. I agree with you to an extent. There's a guy inside that house who's dead. Now this is we know. Okay, so we know that it's Remy who killed him, right? Let's just take that off the table. Let's take all the conspiracy stuff off the table for the time being, and just argue that Cheese killed Ray, right? Let's just look at it from that perspective.
Right.
Cheese killed Ray, took Amanda in retaliation for the larceny for the money, right? So,
right.
I mean, a girl is missing. A girl is potentially with this criminal who fucking might blow her head off.
Right.
Whether there's a ransom note, yes, that is a big factor. You know, where is the ransom? Like, what's going on here? But it might not be a ransom. It might just be a straight up kidnapping, killing as retaliation. We don't know the extent of Cheese's sort of like deranged, I guess, like headspace if he does think like that. But then, like, also, if you are a local cop, and you want to find someone really quickly, using federal resources, I mean, to find them as soon as possible, wouldn't that be the most logical thing to do? I don't know. I get what you're saying. The media circus, and then
right. It's already gotten to kind of a crazy level, you know.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I think it can go either way. I think there's pros and cons to both. But as of now, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, the boat is not being rocked right now, and if it does get rocked, we might get thrown out. So let's just not even rock the fucking boat right now. Like, this has gone far enough. The boat is shaking enough. Let's not keep poking around.
Mm-hmm. They head back to Dorchester, and oh man, I love this scene with Amy Ryan, man. As they're walking into this house, and she just breaks down. She says, "I know I fucked up. I just want my daughter back. You know, I swear to God, I won't use no drugs no more. I won't even go out. I'll be fucking straight. Cross my heart." It's solid, man. It's pretty heartbreaking. It's great.
Yeah, well, and it's just again something to remember towards the end of the movie.
Sure, absolutely. So we're outside. Cheese is kind of like, what is this? What would you call it? Is like a little headquarters, a little store sort of thing?
Yeah, like compound. I don't know.
Yeah. The cops say, you know, we're going in, and then they're just like, look, we'll go in. We know Cheese. We can deal with him. We can talk to him on a different level than you guys. Because if it's not us, it's the FBI. Then it's straight up kidnapping. I love how we meet Cheese. Before we even see his face, he's just doing a fucking bump of coke.
Who is this actor? I can't remember his repertoire, but I've definitely seen him in other stuff.
Keep talking. I'm gonna find him.
Well, I'm trying to remember like what I've seen him from, and I actually just looked this up. But the actor that played Ray actually really died in real life, like back in 2015.
Oh shit!
I don't know if he drowned. Something happened. He was pulled from water at beach.
You know who this guy is? He's Darwin from X-Men First Class.
That's what I thought. Okay, I didn't. Here's the problem. Okay, here's the problem being white and doing a podcast. If you say that name wrong and you go, yeah, he looks just like this, and then you're wrong, you look like a fucking racist. So I was like, I don't know. He looks kind of familiar.
Right. He's a hard dude. Pretty hard dude.
Yeah, definitely. For his one scene, definitely leaves an impression.
For sure. But yeah, he doesn't cop to the kidnapping of Amanda. You know, like there's a lot of this that there's no denials, but there's no sort of agreeing to things. He's being intentionally vague because he doesn't know what's happening really. Like, these guys approached him. Mm-hmm. He gets them to lift up their shirts. You too, miss. I want to see that tit. There's no gender fucking bias here. But yeah, this is. He says, you know, if she's going missing, she's going, baby, going.
Yeah,
and I feel like
Guy.
Peter. I feel like
Yes.
Peter.
He said it. He said it.
Yeah, he said it. But here's my thing. I also really love the way that Patrick holds himself against someone like Cheese, right? Because if it's not me, it's 100 fucking cops, kicking your door in, putting their fat knees on your neck. He just looks them straight in the eye and just
he lays it out, man.
I love it. I love it a lot. Where are we after this? I'm not.
I believe. Let me get my movie pulled up here. I believe that after this, so yeah, that he ends up saying like, "Well, you fucking blew it." Ed Harris really kind of latches on his ass. That's right.
You said you knew him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And he really fucking blows it. And then I think after that they have to go to Morgan Freeman. No. We end up having the meeting with Morgan
Chase
Freeman.
Called in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's also my other question. How did they get Cheese to come to this quarry? How did they set this up?
So Chris, it's kind of like Cheese's sort of like
second
guy.
in command. Yeah.
Yeah. So Broussard got Chris to get Cheese over here.
Gotcha.
To the quarry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how he somehow got him.
Sure. And then Broussard kills Chris later.
Right, that's right. Yeah,
because we see him kind of like sitting in the car,
wrapping up
thing.
closed in stuff. Yeah,
right. So we get a thing of like Cheese wants to meet. He wants to set a meet. He wants to do an exchange. He called into the station. There's a transcript. There's a recording. And he left kind of like a proof that she was alive, right? Like that little mail thing. Now this is where things get really sort of like interesting in terms of the conspiracy element of it all, because as soon as Patrick starts reading the note, the transcript, as soon as he starts reading the highlighted portion that Jack gives him, I think he clocks it. I think he really clocks it, because he starts reading and he says, "Caller, bitch, you better have my money." And he pauses, he looks up at Jack, and he looks up at Remy, and he's like, what the... Okay, all right. Because he just met with Cheese, and we just saw how Cheese talks. Cheese doesn't talk like this. Cheese doesn't talk like, bitch, you better have my money. He's kind of like a bit more... he does speak, obviously, sort of street slang, but he doesn't speak like this. This is weird.
Right. Well, I love what he says. He goes, somebody... either Cheese or Chris pretending to be Cheese called in, and I was like, okay, yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. Or it's just the lingo that three old cops think is still in the know.
Sure.
Like, listen here, bitch, for shizzle.
If you watch it, it's literally at the 45 minute 47 second mark, and it's literally Patrick looks up, he takes a pause from reading it. He looks at both of these cops, and then you see Jack look at Remy. And Remy looks down, like he's disappointed. He's like, "Oh fuck!" Like like did we just fuck up here? I that's something that you don't really catch until your second sort of go around. But it's a huge hint, and if you know the story already, then that's fantastic to see that like little breadcrumbs like that have been laid out.
Yeah, for sure.
But I love Jack being sort of like. You guys brought me into this. You brought me into illegal activity without my consent. This is an unauthorized ransom arrangement. It's now we're gonna have to do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Because if I don't, again, knowing what we know now, obviously everybody in this room except for the PIs are in on it in this major conspiracy. But at the same time, as of now, it does kind of feel like. Yeah, if you're going ahead with an unauthorized thing, and if I stop this, there's a good chance she's going to die. So it's almost like Watchmen, kind of like you force my hand. Like you can go out there and tell everybody that what Ozymandias did was a lie, but it'll ruin everything that we've worked up to. And it's like, fuck, yeah, you kind of force their hand.
Sure, absolutely. We find out a bit more about Jack's sort of mindset around his daughter, right? And my daughter came out crying for me to save her, which is heartbreaking. And I think Morgan Freeman really sort of like carries the weight of this loss. She died afraid and alone in a shallow ditch bank, by the side of the road, not 10 minutes from my house, right?
I'd love if Remy was like, it's actually the sewage, drainage sewage. That's where I threw her.
She died on the shitter, so.
Yeah, like Remy accidentally confesses to it. He's like, oh, actually, I threw her on a sewer drain. He's like, everybody looks at him like, the fuck?
Dude, one of my favorite shots in this entire movie, and again, this movie is not visually, it's not a visual movie, right? Like, it's pretty bare bones. But I love this helicopter shot going over the quarry.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, it shows the massive expanse of the thing.
Yes, it shows you how big this quarry is, but also just how glass-like the water looks. Like, it looks like glass. It looks like a mirror. When Michelle Monaghan jumps from the cliff, right, to save who she thinks is Amanda, I think back to this, and I'm just like, fuck, that must have hurt. Like, you don't question why she's in the hospital afterward,
No, for sure.
But then, yeah, tell me about this scene, this sort of like, because this is the halfway mark of this movie, and this is sort of like the pivot. Kind of like, I guess, the cops are setting this up as sort of like a botched exchange.
Right. Yeah. I think that this is where they're trying to seal the deal now. Like they're trying to be like, okay, we need, ironically, what this kind of coincidentally, I guess, reminded me of was Stranger Things, when they find Will Byers' body in the quarry, and it ends up being kind of a fake, like, which is not, I mean, fuck you. The show's been out for like 9 years. It's in the first season. But it kind of did feel like that. But there was the subterfuge. There was a conspiracy. We're at this quarry. We're dealing with the death of a child. I liked all of this stuff a lot, and I like the fact that it ends up, basically the confusion about what's going on is what's gonna, at this point after this, everybody thinks that Amanda's lost, and even Morgan Freeman's like he's like, basically at one point it says whatever the quarry takes, it takes the whole way, and once it's down there, it's down there. Basically like, well, once it's down there, there's no hope in getting it back. And it's like, dude, there's lakes bigger than this that they look for bodies in. I think it's just another great, I hate to say, it's great tactic by the police in trying to just throw another speed bump in the road and kind of like, oh, well, that's it. Like, she's done,
Yeah, because I think what they end up saying at the end is we did not expect to have both Amanda and the money like at once. We would just right. Lionel says this. Does Lionel say this? No, Lionel doesn't say this. I think it might be Remy.
He does.
Does he? Yeah. Okay. So he says, we had to get rid of Amanda, right? And this is what this looks like.
Right.
One of my favorite moments in this entire movie is, like I said, Angie just jumping off this cliff to save her, and it's done so quickly. Like, there's no time for conversation. It's just there's potentially a girl down there. She's drowning. She's not a mother, but she seems to be a very caring and compassionate person.
Yeah, and it definitely. I'm glad that this is not a Patrick moment. I'm glad that this is her moment, because she doesn't have a shit ton going on in this movie.
No,
but it shows.
But I kind of wonder, and they don't have this conversation in the movie, whether she wants children or has tried having children and can't, because there are. She's very maternal. There's a lot of maternal instincts to her character.
There's a very Departed vibe with like Matt Damon and Vera Farmiga, and I like the fact that it's her character moment to kind of jump in there, and she's not all talk, she will walk the walk, like kind of thing. I thought that was cool.
Right. So she's in hospital. She's feeling very guilty. Right. She feels that she wasn't able to save her, which is incredibly sad.
Oh, and that's what he says. This quarry is deep and dangerous, and often what she takes in, she claims, or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Yeah. Again, trying to kind of like, well, that's it. And all too often she keeps what she takes in. That's it.
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, it's important for Jack Doyle to to keep that narrative up, right? Because no one's going to go looking for her.
Right.
And like that, she was gone, right? We get like a little bit of a time jump. This is sort of like, again, this movie, the structure of this movie is really interesting because we're given this like big sort of like first hour of where is Amanda? Like, you know, what's going on? Where is she? Whatever. And then it's like there's a bit of a pivot in that we kind of forget about Amanda a little bit. Like, you know, we're asked to forget about her because she's passed away, she's died, she's no longer she can't be found. What do you think about the structure of this movie? To kind of like take a pivot halfway through.
I don't care for it, honestly. I don't love it. Like I guess I don't hate it. But again, this is where it feels like I don't know.
The moment is this so do you reckon the momentum's kind of stopped a little bit, and that's why it feels like it feels longer to you? Like,
yes,
because of this pivot.
Yes, absolutely. It definitely feels like, you know, I don't know, like it to me it feels like this should be like the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then they should be like 6 months later, and then the rest of the story kind of unfolds, like you know, because, and also I don't know how much time there is between the beginning of this and when actually she's brought back home. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, it seems like. But the momentum the momentum does kind of change, and also it's like I still am kind of lost about, like, so is she in the fucking quarry or not? Did they just give up and just say, hey, like, she's been gone for too long? Like, doesn't that usually take years? Like, doesn't it take a long time before they'll just declare somebody legally dead? Yeah, I don't know. I had some questions, and it does kind of kill the momentum, and just kind of, you know, it hits this like real deep lull and tries to rev back up again. And I'm like, man, we've been lulling and revving like this whole movie, where it's like somebody, now we've got new information and we're back on it. And it does feel like you just stop full tilt. And it's like, well, it's kind of hard to pick back up again right after that. You know, we get this narration at the end that feels like the end of a fucking movie. But I think this would have been great if they had almost done like part one, part two. Like part one is like an hour long. It's like 56 minutes, and the rest of the movie is like an hour, you know? So it's like, there is like a good, like 45, 50 minute split on both ends that I feel like you could have done, like, again, a mini series, like part one, part two, and give an hour and a half to each one and make this a good chunky, like, mini series. But, you know, yeah, it I don't know. It really fucks with like the flow of this movie.
Yeah, I think it's a bold choice to make a pivot like this in the middle of the movie, and I don't know if it pays off. But in my opinion, it does rev up pretty successfully, because we do get this sort of like moment with these three sort of like individuals, and then we're tied into the story after that. But yeah, it is interesting because there are questions about the quarry that need to be asked, and but again, that ties into things need to happen in this movie for the questions to be asked. Like, like it's the same reason why the movie is asking us to give it a pass for Patrick's decision to kill Colin Earl. It's the same thing. Like the dragging of the quarry, we just need to kind of like put that out of our mind. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's the most realistic thing. I'm just saying it's the thing necessary for the story to survive, for the story to be told. Yeah.
Well, and I think that it's just kind of like, I mean, you know that this movie's not an hour long, so it's like, well, I know that's not the end of the story. Like, it just kind of feels like a false end, and then they try to start it back up again, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it.
Mm-hmm. Tell you what I found really fucking sad, though. Really kind of upsetting is the funeral that they hold, and they have to give the casket back at the end of the day. Get fucked.
Yeah, Jesus. Right. Jesus Christ. Well, I guess there'd be no funeral, like no burial, I assume.
Exactly. Casey's lamenting about the hundreds of children who go missing each year. Amanda's more haunting because she'll never be found. What they did find was another big story, and I couldn't help but find it strange. Not 2 months later, and not far away, Johnny Pietro, age 7, another child went missing. And he had this cross of St. Christopher, right? That was that's important. important note.
So real quick, is this because I don't know if they ever say, is this the kid that they end up finding in the bathtub?
Yes.
Okay. I assume so, but I still, again, there are movies that can not have to spell every single little thing out. But this movie has a problem with, like, you need to spell things out a little bit more, like I get it. We can cut, but I don't ever remember them saying in this movie, that is the body of Johnny Pietro. Like, I feel like it's kind of assumed.
I don't know if I need that conversation. I think the fact that you see Corwin Earl holding the cross of St. Christopher is enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's enough for me.
Yeah. I don't need
confirmation.
I'm kind of a little bit torn because at one point, Patrick's partner says, like, Amanda's dead, like, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, so she is dead, like she's dead, 100% dead, like, because that's what's fucking me up here, because it's like we find a dead kid, but then Amanda has already been declared dead. So, like, is this her, like, 100%? I don't know. That confused me a little bit. And the medallion of St. Christopher, I remember that, from the news report, but also, it was the fact that they kind of go, like, they kind of bring that up. They're like, oh yeah, the medallion of St. Christopher, like, blah blah blah. I was like, well, did she also go to a school that was part of that, blah blah blah. Like, I couldn't remember what the relevance of that was. So, like, I don't know, it just didn't like scream it out to me. I'm not usually somebody who has to have things, like, thoroughly explained to them, but it's a little convoluted. It was a little tricky for me, especially on a first time watch, to, like, okay, where exactly are we in this? Because it's very noir, it's very kind of Blade Runner-ish in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like this is a movie that you need to have multiple viewings of,
Yeah. I mean, like, there's, especially with the amount of twists and turns the movie has, you do need to watch it a couple times. For me, it was enough that that she went into the lake. Amanda supposedly went into the quarry, and then we specifically get the line from Casey saying, "And just like that, she was gone." Like that.
Right.
That's enough for me to assume that she died in the quarry.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
which, see, I didn't buy that either, because there's no body, and I was
yes,
like, no,
exactly,
there's
that's the movie. Yeah. But then, but then it's like, okay, we're pivoting to a different story. This Johnny Pietro kid who has this medallion of St. Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, look. Anyway, let's move on, because we're gonna be fucking ever. But anyway,
yeah.
This guy Bubba, Bubba is his name apparently. He's listed, credited as Bubba. Comes
cool.
Bubba Bubba Gump comes to grab Patrick at the bar. He says, bring your piece. We're gonna need it. They scope out this place. It's a shithole, right? It's a fucking Jesus Christ. The fat bitch and the old dude are in there. My man didn't know about the diddler. Come in with me. Watch my side. We'll find out if this motherfucker's in there. So they go up to this house, and who answers the door, Colin?
Dawn
Hector. Or Satan from Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, actually.
When he says my man didn't know about the diddler, is that like the old guy? Is he saying he didn't know he's a diddler? Like,
no. Because at this point in the movie, well, we know that these three people are associated. We know that the old man is associated with the big woman, and they're associated with the pedophile.
Right.
When they say diddler, they're talking about the pedophile. He doesn't know. He doesn't know whether the pedophile's inside the house. That's what he's saying.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. They go and knock on the door, and yes, fucking Don Hector opens the door. It's so weird to see him speak normally. Open up, I got the money right here. It's just like I said, man, this place is a shithole. He's jonesing, right?
Oh, Jesus.
He asks about who Patrick is. He's your father. Open the door. Dude, the newspapers and the windows, him not wearing a shirt. Like, it feels like if I touch anything in this place, I'm just going to get tetanus. I'm going to get hep C,
Right. Yeah, this is a dirty fucking place.
It's fucked up. He sits down, gives him the money. He gives him a taster, which he does immediately. And the woman walks in, and she's like, "I told you that I told you not to start without me." And he's like, "It's a taster bag." But I love the tension being ratcheted up, right? So Bubba's looking around. He's trying to see if he can clock the pedophile, and again, the tension is just ramping up. It's ramping up. "Sir, I told you not to go up there," until she pulls out the gun. And and then it's kind of like a stalemate, right? Because Patrick pulls the gun on her. But before anyone's able to pull any trigger, Bubba's able to see Cornell, right? Cornell's up there on the top of the stairs, holding the medallion of Saint Christopher, which is enough confirmation that we need.
Apparently. No.
Well, it kind of gives the cops some PC, right? Some probable cause, because we got Remy and Nick rolling up. They're wearing their vests, and they're like, "We're going in." You know, backup's on the way, but we're going in now. Also one more thing as well, because this is kind of like pertinent to our conversation soon. But Cornell looks down the stairs and he's like, "Is it a party?" Right? So his capacity is diminished.
Yeah. He definitely a weird, creepy, like childlike mind.
He's not up there. He's not right. There. Yeah. Let's talk about this scene. Fucking heavy, by the way. This entire sequence is. This is a scene. So they load up. They're hiring cocaine. SWAT will be here in 5 minutes. Nick Poole goes to knock on the door. Remy goes around. They're getting fucking... Dude, the first shot. Just bang! Right in fucking Nick's... Oh.
Right in his jugular.
There's something about... I don't think it's his jugular, is it? Is it his jugular?
I think it nicks like right there, like across his neck.
Yep. Visual medium. Yep. But there's something about him getting shot and then just like sitting down on the steps. Like there's something about that of just like, dude, I can't deal with this. I gotta sit down on the steps. I'm done. I'm out of this.
Oh yeah. The shaking is what's really like genuine to me, like the shock of it.
Yeah. And then Patrick just leaps into action. I love it. He just fucking runs. He tries to get Nick out of there. I love as we follow him. It's like just a handheld camera just sprinting behind him. It looks like it looks like it's being shot in a war zone. And you know they're still firing, right? So Nick manages to break down the door. He finds Don Hector dead, right, shot in the back.
Wait, Nick? Patrick.
Sorry, did I say Nick? My bad.
Yeah. Sorry. No, you're good.
Sorry, Nick's out on the banister. Just
he's just he's dying out there.
Yeah, he's currently dying. And then the big girl rounds the corner with the gun. You know, she chases Patrick upstairs. Right, he's in the belly of the beast.
Ooh,
this
when she hits that fucking door. The wood, like you can hear the wood splintering, like under the lock. it's tough. She got up those stairs pretty quick, by the way. Well done. Oh yeah, hell yeah. She got that coke speed.
It's like in track star. It's like in Skyrim when like you take something and it's like coke gives you 3+ points, but then you're carrying too many things, so you're cumbersome. You know, you're too cumbersome to walk.
she's over encumbered.
Right. Man, here's something that we didn't give props to for this movie. The production design, you know, we were kind of like talking about it a little bit, like when Bubba and Patrick were here in this house before. But this scene in particular, there are shots in this scene that have lingered with me for a very long time. And, you know, very, very similar to Watchmen. There's a moment in Watchmen when Rorschach goes to kill that pedophile.
Yes.
And we get the quick shot of the dog with the bone, you know, things like that. Things this is edited in the same way. I would say as Watchmen, like in terms of like you get very quick flashes of things that just don't strike you right. Like they don't hit you
Right.
right. You know, like
Right.
the masking tape on the bar there, and you know the underwear in the sink. That is the big one to me, because it's
Oh
just
hell yeah! And like how dark the blood is on the
how
underwear.
dark
It's
the
like
blood is, and it just looks like it's been shoved in there for cleaning. And you know, you got Cole and Earl just like lying, like you know, his back is up against the wall, and he's like, "It was an accident. It was an accident."
uh-huh.
And the music is ramping up, and it's just this, you know, you see the soap, the cracked soap. It's no one's used it in years. It's
Right.
like the detail here is brilliant. And you pan down, and inside the bathtub is the head of a kid, and it's just like, man. And as soon as like Patrick clocks that, as soon as he sees it, he throws up immediately, and we cut to black. But when like we're doing this really quick cuts, like it's awesome. I love this a lot, because that is what that would feel like, you know, to Patrick. I
Right.
think it's
Well, and I was wondering, does he kill Johnny like as the cops show up just to kill him, or has it looks like this kid might have been dead for a little while?
yeah. I don't know when he killed
I
him.
guess it's not prevalent, but
It's not an important question to the story. I also don't think that this kid's dead just recently. I think unfortunately Corwin's had him up here for a while,
right,
doing what he
right.
does. And in the process of maybe, I don't know, cleaning him up or something, he accidentally killed him. I don't know.
Right. I just I didn't know if it was a thing of like, oh, they're here, I'm just going to kill you now, which it just changes a lot about his character given what we've seen about him, or
about capacity. Yeah.
Right.
You know what, man? Like I was watching this with Steph. She'd never seen it before, and you know, she's like, oh, he's not gonna kill him. Fucking flashes. Yeah. It flashes to the scene where he's holding the gun against his head. She's like, no, he's not gonna do it. And he fucking pulls the trigger. And she's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Holy hell.
Because it is a big moment for your lead character, and a decision made by your lead character that requires a little bit of conversation, right? I mean, like there is some conversation to be had here. You know, you and I obviously, you know, when it comes to crimes against children, we're very strong in our opinions on that. Fucking kill those.
I'm very pro crime to children. No,
but then when you bring in the diminished capacity, when you bring in the fact that this guy is mentally fucked up, and whether he knows.
Which is not an excuse, obviously.
No,
but it's definitely, there's definitely a reason like behind what this guy's doing.
Yes, and then it becomes the question of, was it a right thing to do for Patrick to take matters into his own hands and execute him? That's the ultimate question.
Right, because you can also, like, in the same way that now, this is not a great comparison, but in the same way that, like, if you want to say, well, people can change, like Helene can change, like, would it have been possible for Corwin to change?
Sure.
Like, would it have been possible Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. You're right on it. You were about to say what I was going to say. Is there redemption?
Yes.
Even for the worst of worst of worst of worst of worst of worst. Like, is there any kind of, not that, but at the same time, like, I personally am like, yeah, like, I don't know, because some of us are just predisposed to, like, I like women with short hair. I prefer brunettes with short hair. You know, could I unlearn that? Maybe, but it would be basically changing who you are as a person. And you know, it kind of like, I think that's almost too big of a change for one person, you know. But then you're like, well, do you just start lining up pedophiles and shooting them in the head? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, maybe it's just a gene that needs to be hatcheted out, you know, like, even though that's an awful thing to say, it might just be something in your brain that, you know, that makes, what is it in your brain that makes you want to do this? And is that something that just through through evolution just needs to be whittled away at. I don't know. There's an argument there. It's like even for the worst of awful people, can they change? But I don't think this guy. I don't think so. This is just one of those things. This guy is a repeat offender. He has an MO for how he rapes children. That's not somebody who's going to all of a sudden, start going to mass and really turn their life around. Like, this is a guy who's going to be dead in 2 years anyways. So I don't know, I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare him and Helene, that just two very fucking different things. Like, what she's doing to herself. She's not doing this to anybody else. Yeah, she does put Amanda in danger at points, but she's not like letting her get sexually assaulted and stuff like that. Like, that's a very different thing. So I guess, I don't know. I guess because it is kind of a similar question. Like, do you have the right to be the judge, jury, and executioner? And it's like, in this case, I say yes, because it's like, can people change? Yes, rarely. I think rarely, but this is not one of those cases.
Yes, I tend to agree with you. I think there was another episode of the podcast. I can't remember what episode it was, but we were talking about the guidelines for sentencing. And like in New South Wales, at least, what judges must have regard to when they're sentencing people, right? And when they're coming up with their, you get 7 years, you get 6 years, whatever. When they're coming up with those sentences, they have to have regard to a number of things, a list of things, before deciding on coming to a decision. I can't remember them all off by heart, but one of them is rehabilitation, right? Or one of them is the chances to rehabilitate the person who is being convicted. Other things include like deterrence and punishment and stuff like that, right? So, if you give someone a higher sentence, then is that likely to deter other people from doing it? That's something they need to have regard to as well. But we're talking about rehabilitation here, and I think you're 100% right. I think there is no rehabilitation for Corwin Earl. He looks to be 30 to 40 years of age.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And, he's probably got the mind of a 10-year-old from what we've seen, but you don't, if he's got a mental defect, there is no, the chances to rehabilitate that, it's very slim to none, because it's hardwired into his brain, right? Which is why when people when people are accused of crimes like this and there is that mental sort of like defect, that's why they go to a hospital instead of prison, right? Because there's no chance of rehabilitation.
Right, yeah.
So, but again, if we're circling back around to the main question, which is, was it the right thing to do for Patrick to execute Corwin Earl in cold blood? It's a difficult question, and there's arguments on both sides, but I think you and I are pretty much,
right.
I mean, yeah, we're in alignment. I mean, especially in the heat of the moment, especially.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can smell this place. Like I can physically through my screen smell this place. It smells like piss.
Yeah.
It smells like vomit. It smells like shit.
Well, and it's obviously the justice system is not working because he just keeps getting out and doing it again. And it kind of becomes the same thing of like Batman and the Joker. Like, why don't you just fucking kill this guy? And the fact that I think in that moment, Patrick is sitting there saying like, I can end this right here, or I can put somebody in my shoes 5 years from now, back in this guy's apartment, back with another dead kid, or I can end this now. I just have to bear the weight of the responsibility of doing it. And in this case, like, yeah, I'm all down for it, because this is not somebody who, and as soon as there's any kind of, I don't know, like, yeah, there is kind of a child's mind there. Like, there is something definitely wrong with this guy, but he knows what he's done is wrong, because it's the first thing. Oh, it was an accident. And it's like, no, it's fucking not.
Right.
No, it's fucking not.
Right,
and it's like,
right.
don't try to sit there and say that. Like, the fact that you're saying that, no, it shows me that you
Like you
know
broke
what
a
you're
toy.
doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, that shows me right there that you know what you've done is wrong.
Oh, that he's trying to mitigate it. Like that he's trying to
Right.
minimize it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
And it's like, if you're doing that, then, I need to minimize the brain in your skull. Like, that's what needs to happen. Like, I think that it's just something that, again, it's kind of like Seven, what does he say at the end of that? I know I did the right thing, but if I went back, I'd do it differently again. I wouldn't. I think in 20 years that Patrick's like, no, I did the right thing, shooting that guy in the back of the head. Like I ended a lot of misery for the families of past and future victims, and also a small bit of misery that this guy probably lived through like every day.
Yeah, it brings back that Ernest Hemingway quote at the end of Seven, right? I think the world is a fine place and worth fighting for, and then I agree with the second part.
Right.
That's exactly what that movie was covering. That's what this is covering as well. Just in terms of a filmmaking standpoint, I love the way that's shot. By the way, of Cornell just holding his head up, and then the gun being brought into frame, and then
oh yeah,
there's like a couple of seconds as a beat, and you don't know whether it's going to happen, and then bang, the blood on the ground. It's it's sick. And man, another little thing is just the little body bag being hauled off into the
Jesus
stuff, man. And we're in the hospital, and again, Angie's character, it's being fleshed out a bit more because she says to him, "I'm proud of you. You made the right decision." Again, it's never specifically detailed, but her maternal instincts coming through, right? Whether she had a kid or wants children or whatever, there are multiple points in this movie where she shows a great deal of affection and compassion for children, and one of them is here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing I was just thinking about when you were talking was the fact that they never bring up who Amanda's father is. I guess it's not really relevant, but I thought first time watching this, like they're suspiciously not bringing that up at all. I was like, which I guess is not, there's single mothers everywhere, unfortunately. But I was like, I thought at the end of it, something was going to come out and it was going to be like, oh yeah, this is Remy's kid or something. There's a reason why they're all so close and on this day. Okay, gotcha. Makes a little bit more sense. But I like the fact that never really gets answered. It's not important.
Mm-hmm. We're outside with Remy in this sort of like pivotal scene, right? Remy's talking about how he planted evidence on a guy once. They got they got this call from his pal Ray Lakansky, right?
Mm-hmm.
This guy, this CI that I know, he's
if he'd have just kept his mouth shut right here and just had a random CI, like the whole story says steals.
If he kept his mouth shut, yeah, exactly. But instead, he's kind of like reaching out in a moment of compassion to Patrick, just saying like, I understood what you're doing. I get it. Trying to ease his mind a little bit, but essentially,
it actually. It reminds me of Mike in Breaking Bad. There are no half measures, like if I had done what I should have done, then, we'd be, that woman would still be alive. But,
sure.
The fact that I didn't do it is the problem.
No half measures, Walter.
Yeah. No half measures, Walter.
Right. Oh man, Ed Harris is just a fucking powerhouse here. Would you have done it? Would you do it again? Fucking A.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's brilliant, man. But I also love this whole idea that kids don't judge, right? Like kids forgive and forget. Like this is this innocence, like the loss of innocence, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Right, absolutely.
I put an ounce of heroin on the living room floor, and I sent the father on a ride, 7 and 9. Yeah, god damn it, Ed Harris. Who would have thought he's a good actor? Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
right. Patrick goes home, and something just doesn't sit right with him. Right, he talks to Angie. He's like, he mentioned Ray Lakansky, but he denied knowing. I mean, like first time we met him, he had no idea who Ray Lakansky is. He was like, you haven't
investigated this dude, and he's like, nope.
Yeah. Angie suggests letting it go, right? Amanda's dead. Let it go. Did you think that there was something going on with Angie, or were you just like, she's just trying to counsel him a little bit?
No, yeah, I didn't think anything was going on with her. I think I knew something else was going on because there's still I don't know 25 minutes worth of movie left, so I knew something else was up. But I didn't ever think that there was anything going on with her, her specifically.
Sure. We're at Nick's funeral, obviously a police funeral, and there's this short little exchange between Patrick and Brisant, right? I was thinking about a conversation the other night, and it's very clear that Brisant, or Remy, I'm going to keep calling her Remy.
Yeah.
It's very clear that Remy's gone home and thought about it and is like, oh shit, I fucked up. I shouldn't have mentioned Ray, because he says, well, I said some things I shouldn't have.
Right, yeah. And it's like, well, you're talking about the planning, the evidence. I'm like, no, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And it's like, no, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a little bit more hostility here, right? Forget about the other night and we'll be friends. What if I don't? What if I don't? That's not an if you want to bring into your life. Love it. Love it a lot. Then we get the scene with Michael K. Williams, right? Oh, fucking Michael K. Williams, man. Rest in peace.
I know.
He was a legend, man. Omar.
What did he end up dying of?
He overdosed.
Because I was wondering, because he has the whites of his eyes are very yellow, and that is sometimes a sign of like opioid abuse.
Is that like jaundice?
I think that can be. I know jaundice is where like your skin turns yellow and stuff, but I don't know if the whites of your eyes do. I know that I know that doing too many opioids will turn the whites of your eyes yellow.
Yeah. So he. Yeah, it was rough the day. So Williams was found dead in his apartment in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, by his nephew on September 6, 2021, age 54. God damn, he was young. Confirmed that Williams died of a combination of fentanyl, p-fluorofentanyl, heroin, and cocaine, and ruled the death of an overdose. Jesus Christ,
God
man.
Damn. It sounds like he got a bad batch.
He had some problems because there's a great Mark Maron podcast, obviously WTF, but Mark Maron, and he's a guest on it. He was a guest on it, Michael K. Williams, and he talks about his journey and struggles with alcohol abuse and drug abuse. And at that point during the recording of the podcast, he was sober. And I can't remember how long it was between the podcast and his death, but he obviously backslid and
Philip Seymour Hoffman,
yeah. Have we talked about Michael K. Williams before? I'm not sure. Sure we have.
What'd you say? I didn't hear what you just said.
Oh, sorry. Have we talked about Michael K. Williams before? Because I'm not sure if we have.
I don't know if we've covered a lot of movies with him in it, honestly.
Okay. Because I looked up his scar. Because Steph was like, "That's a cool scar," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's legit." We looked it up, and so I'm just going to read this. The Brooklynite often spoke about how he felt out of place in a very alpha male community and found solace in drugs and short stints as a backup dancer. Then, on his 25th birthday, everything changed. Williams was at a club in Queens and stepped outside to get some air when he saw his friends were about to get into a fight. Speaking at NPR in 2014, Williams recalled trying to break up the brawl and how one man kept pacing behind him. And this is a quote. He kept sucking his teeth, and I'm like, yo, so what's up, dude? Bro, what's your problem? And the dude wiped his hand across his mouth and just what I thought appeared to be smacked me, but what he did was he spit a razor. He was positioning the razor in his mouth to get between his middle finger and his ring finger, and then he just went like that and swiped me down my face.
What a fucking bitch.
Cut my face. The razor sliced Williams' face and neck, leaving a scar that would change his life. Directors started hiring Williams to play the role of thugs and gangsters, and while it took a long time to be able to look himself in the mirror, the scar changed the way people saw and treated him. And he says, all my life, I'm this cream puff. The next thing I know, everyone sees me as some kind of gangster, he told the New York Times in 2017. Yeah.
That's like that actor on Sons of Anarchy, and he's in like Gladiator, Tommy
Flanagan.
He's got the Glasgow smile.
The Glasgow smile, yeah.
The fucking Glasgow smile.
Yeah. But yeah, so Patrick's trying to find out. I can't remember the name of this cop, but we'll just call him Michael K. Williams.
Hell yeah.
But basically just trying to find out the relationship between him and Michael K. Williams and working narcotics, right? Trying to figure out what his deal is. You don't think that Remy's dirty though, do you? And then he's like, "What's dirty?"
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are you fucking with him for, kind of thing, and and then you kind of like get this like sort of like, Cheese didn't even know he got robbed until 2 weeks later. So how did Remy know before Cheese? Yeah, this is weird. This is a weird deal. But yeah, this is a great scene. I dig this scene. And then we're kind of like getting this moment with Lionel, right?
Oh, dude, yeah. This is when this guy had me. I was like, he is an absolute powerhouse of an actor. He really gets a good amount of chance to shine. Like watching, 24 years of sobriety go down the drain is really heartbreaking. Obviously, not more than him confiding in the fact that he kidnapped his own niece, and he's still not telling the truth. Like, I think that's where the movie started to lose me, is that it was constantly like, I didn't trust what I was being told because the rug had been pulled so many times. And I was like, okay, now what's going to happen? It's going to be Morgan Freeman didn't kidnap her, that it was actually his girlfriend and she was in on it. Like, okay, this kind of gets like, it's almost like the movie Wild Things, as ridiculous as it is. Like, it's just like, no, this person did it. No, this person did it. No, this person did it. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
Man.
I haven't heard anything you said since Wild Things because I just think of Denise Richards in that movie. So
yeah, I've seen 600 minutes of that movie and 4 scenes. But yeah, it just seemed like constant like rug pull after rug pull. But the fact that I really did think that we were kind of getting, of course, the first time I'm watching it, I think we're actually getting like the final story, the real down low. And it's just still, and the fact that we're still not there is like, God damn. I think this guy absolutely destroys this, and he's really, he's not one of those people that is a bad liar. He's a good liar. Like, he covered this shit up pretty well, and it was only through Patrick really doing some digging that he was able to poke holes in the story. But this actor is absolutely incredible. This put him way more on my fucking radar. Oh yeah. And he's got an insanely distinguishable look, especially with the handlebar mustache. But even without that, like, I feel like this guy is like a almost, I feel like he's giving me like Gary Oldman vibes, like in a chameleon way. Like, I feel like this.
Let me stop you right there and bring him down a couple notches, all right? Because he was in Transformers: Age of Extinction, and
No, I'm saying he's giving me like whiffs of the fact that he's got this like I don't know, this big mustache, and he's kind of he is playing the blue collar Boston guy to a T.
Oh, sure.
He is playing him extremely well, and I did not feel like I was like, I felt the way I felt when I look at Gary Oldman. I'm not looking at an actor. I'm looking at a person who, like, I'm not, I like the fact that we're all playing make believe just kind of disappears for me. Like, he just, and I guess it probably helps. I have not seen him in much else. So the believability is, I'm not in my brain going, oh, that's that guy in Transformers, like, it doesn't really conjure up anything for me. It's very blank slate.
There's a moment in Transformers when he rocks up to Mark Wahlberg's house and they ask whether he has a warrant, and him delivering the line of "my face is my warrant" is,
oh god.
That's the kind of level of writing we're working on with that.
That first one wasn't bad. I saw the first one.
I want to cover the first one. I actually really want to cover the first one because I really like that movie.
Well, and I like the kind of crossovers they did with like Linkin Park and stuff. I didn't mind those. Yeah. I thought those were pretty. New Divide is a great song.
Dude, that's how I discovered what I've done in New Divide and Linkin Park in general. I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's when I was listening to Linkin Park a lot, like Minutes to Midnight and stuff. It's a great album. Very good album.
There's a new Transformers out this year called Rise of the Beast, which looks really good.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I am a huge Beast Wars fan. Like, the fact that they were all animals. I thought that was my animated cartoon back then. It was Beast Wars.
Yeah. By the way,
God damn it. You know who I just put it together that Casey Affleck looks a shit ton like? A very young Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. Like, if you like, he kind of has the. Oh, the
I know Green Day. I know Green Day.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Oh man, yeah, he looks a shit ton like Billy Joe Armstrong to me. He's got like a very similar kind of like chin and stuff.
Yeah,
definitely a young BJE.
Yeah, look, Green Day, Simple Plan, like that was all like that was a vibe. That was an era.
Oh yeah, it's not a phase, Mom. Have you seen that guy? The TikTok that went really famous. This Australian guy who's singing like, he's singing an emo song. It's like the something. I'm coming with you, dear Maria, count me in. But this guy is sitting in the car and his girlfriend's filming. He goes, "It's not a phase, Mom. It's a lifestyle. Because I got your picture. I'm coming with you, dear Maria, count me." And he just nails this fucking. He's like the veins in his neck are popping. And I was like, as soon as you said like, yeah, it's a vibe. I was like, it's a lifestyle, Mom. It's a great TikTok. It was pretty good.
Speaking of which, did you hear that Panic at the Disco is going to be no longer?
I heard that. Lindsay was just telling me about it. I don't blame him. I mean, they've been a band for almost 20 years at this point. You know, Time to Dance was like 05. And I think they, maybe not Brandon Urie himself, but kind of his entourage he runs with, I think have also had some allegations like leveled against him.
Right.
I don't think he's been formally. Yeah, amazing musician, but like when they were first starting Panic, they were all sharing one room with 2 bunk beds. So it's like these guys have been putting in the time for a while, and I don't blame them for wanting to kind of rest on their laurels.
Yeah, that guy's voice is insane, Brendan Urie's.
Oh, very good.
Anyway, one thing I wanted to point out is this bar, Murphy's Law, is a real bar. It's a thing. I actually looked it up. They have a very adorable website that's dedicated to Gone Baby Gone.
That's cool.
murphyslawbar.com/Gone Baby Gone, and it's just like a little kind of like just of when they came to film there. I guess this is from the owner. He says this is directly from the website. Hollywood came to Murphy's Law in March 2006 when Ben Affleck, in search of locations for the critically acclaimed major motion picture Gone Baby Gone, arrived at our door. Accompanied by his production staff, Ben personally began taking photographs of the bar and its many patrons. Most were taken aback by not by his celebrity, but by how down to earth and unassuming he was. Filming. On a personal note, I found the whole experience fascinating, despite the long hours and numerous takes. It was great to see firsthand what it takes to make a movie and then see the finished product. Ben also made it a point to include the staff of Murphy's Law in various scenes throughout the film, such as the crowd scene at the opening of the movie and the funeral scene where I portrayed a Boston police officer. Gone Baby Gone is a great film that is very thought-provoking and will stick with you for days. We're very proud to have been part of Ben's directorial debut. If this film is any indication, Ben has a bright future ahead of him, and it's nice to see this new avenue open up to him. That's awesome, man. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, all right. Who interrupts proceedings here?
I'm sorry. Say it one more time.
Who interrupts this little conversation between Patrick, Angie, and
Oh yeah! As soon as he busted, I was like, "All right, Ed Harris." I was like, "There just happens to be a robbery in this bar." I mean, and I think the solid choice to show the conversation between Lionel and almost said Ramsey of Rami on the phone versus like actually showing actually showing the conversation was kind of interesting. I think that is kind of cool. But yeah, actually showing him bust in, this mask is kind of terrifying, actually. Like, It's pretty fucking creepy.
It's creepy as fuck, man. Fuck, man. One thing that I went past, and I need to give it its due weight. And you were talking about Titus Welliver and how good of an actor he is, and I completely agree. Because the moment when he says, fucking, what's Amy Ryan's character's name again? I keep saying Helene.
Oh, Helene.
Yeah, sorry, it is Helene. So Helene went down to the beach to smoke some doobies with these guys, and she left Amanda in this car, right? And I have such a strong hatred for people who do that. By the way, sometimes that pops up in the news of like, a child was found unconscious because their parent left them in a car on a hot day. Dude, if you do that here in Australia, you're fucked. You are absolutely. That's a death sentence.
Yeah. They do that with animals here now. I think it's a felony.
Yeah, it's an absolute death sentence. But when he says, I felt her body, she was so hot, and she felt like something that just come out of the oven, like a pot roast. And I'm just like, man, like he's selling this. He's selling this so much. But Remy comes in this sort of like faux robbery, right? And he's like, "What'd you say? What'd you say?"
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I love that.
Patrick obviously clocks that it's Remy, right? Because I mean, it makes total sense that Remy's going to blow away the only witness to this. And he just starts shouting. I love this. He's just like, Remy Brisson kidnapped Amanda McCready.
Fuck! And
it's so good.
Pulls the shotgun on him.
It's brilliant, man. I love it. I love it a lot. And I love the bartender just straight up fucking blasting him. It's good stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, you don't do this in that kind of Boston neighborhood.
Oh no. So Patrick goes to find him, and Remy's kind of like bleeding out on this rooftop. And oh man, I love the line. I love his last line. I love children. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's still this thing of like, like Patrick doesn't know the full weight of things yet, but it's an indication of she's alive because I love children, man. Like we didn't kill her. I love children.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Right.
It's good stuff. Where are we after that? Oh yeah, he's kind of like being interviewed by the cops. You have no idea that this is a setup, the quarry, you're baffled, which is a good question, by the way. Like the cops are kind of like putting the screws to Patrick and being like, let's talk about the quarry night. And I mean, you're baffled that this is a setup. I mean, like you're not questioning some things. It's a
right. Yeah,
it's a fair question.
If this guy is so smart, how could you not have seen through the fact that this was just a total conspiracy? And I love that he puts it back in their court. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, I put the trust in the wrong people. I guess I shouldn't trust cops. And I think that is one of Casey Affleck's like best moments is the wide-eyed. Oh, I guess I put my trust in the cops. Who would have thought? Like that is actually a pretty funny engagement. But what do we find out here? We get some information.
Yeah. This is the moment that we find out that calls are not recorded to the station and we have no transcripts, right? Which is, in hindsight, a big oversight from Jack Doyle, I think. I mean, it's like...
I think once all the information gets out there, like, what's to stop Patrick from saying to somebody like, yeah, we saw the transcripts. Like, what transcripts? Like, I don't know. That's a big if to put out there, Sure.
But then, correct me if I'm wrong, when they get to Jack's place, isn't he sort of like leaving? Aren't they planning to leave? Are they leaving the state? Is that what's going on?
That's what I took away from it. Yeah, definitely.
So maybe,
you can't really hang around here with a known missing child.
Sure, absolutely. So maybe like, like the transcripts were always meant to be temporary because he always knew that people were going to find out anyway. So let's just leave.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the moment, man. This is the big reveal. Turns out Amanda McCready's alive. She comes running down the steps and she's happy, she's smiling, and she gives Jack a big hug. Right? They cuddle. She's a great little actress, by the way. She's adorable.
Mm-hmm. She's very, when she props her head at the end, her hands behind her head at the end, and just chills. Like she's so natural.
Yeah.
And this is where I kind of want to get into Jack's decisions, Morgan Freeman's decisions, because I think that he thinks that obviously he's trying to fill the void of his own lost child. And I think that ultimately that's what's probably driving him more than anything else, more than even he knows. I think that, he's trying to act like, oh, she's going to be put in a situation where she's going to be murdered and I'm protecting her. It's like, no, motherfucker, you put her in the situation she's in. You're the one who put her in the back of that car and took her from her family. Like you can't sit there and threaten a situation that you created and act like, oh, I'm trying to avoid all this stuff. It's like, yeah, well, you're the one who started it. Like, you're the one who pushed all you used, obviously a very bad thing that Helene and Ray did, ripping off this drug dealer. Like, obviously you use that to your advantage. And I think that, like, yeah, I get the the point that he's trying to make is that Helena will eventually lead her down a path that will ruin her life. And she'll wind up in CPS and maybe going from foster home to foster home. And, you know, God, Jesus Christ, like all the awful stuff that can happen when you're bounced around in the system like that. I get it, what he's trying to avoid, but I feel like, you know, I don't know. I feel like Jack is trying to reconcile saving a child with losing one, which is understandable and even somewhat commendable. But it's the fact that this is, you know, it does kind of bother me that it's nobody ever, and I almost expected them to be like, you know what, Amanda, do you want to go home to your mom or do you want to stay here? Like, I really thought it was going to eventually come down to that, or because this child is kind of like a MacGuffin the whole time, then just is not a character in and of herself. So I think that there's definitely, Jack's intentions are wrong for the right reason. You know, he thinks he's doing something right, but I don't think it really has a lot to do with, would Jack, had he not lost his own daughter, be a part of this? Fuck no. Hell no. Like, there's no way that this cop's going to flush his whole career down the toilet for this one kid. But I really kind of thought, like, this movie was going to play out a lot differently than it did towards the end. Like, I honestly, I was like, you know, he's being forced to make a choice between telling the cops what's really happened and basically letting things play out as they are. And here's the thing. There's no way that this is going to last forever. Morgan Freeman's like 80 years old, you know, like this girl's probably, you're going to die when she's like 14, you know, and you're going to leave her with your wife, which is, it just brings up more questions than answers. You know, eventually you're going to need a birth certificate to put her in school.
Well, sorry. You're getting into Patrick's decision, which we'll talk about. Let's talk a little bit more about Jack's decision. Sorry. I didn't want to cut you off. You're going. No. You're going down a path, and I was like, yeah.
Because I think you can't talk about one without going into the other. Like,
sure,
Jack's decision.
They're interconnected.
I think, very interconnected to what Patrick decides to do, and you know, I kind of expected this to go a different way, but I think that Jack is trying to, again, thinks he's doing this thing for the right reasons, but really I think he's trying to fill a hole. You know, why is it you that has to take the kid? You know, like, why does it have to be you and your family? You know, that seems a little odd to me.
I think there's also one more thing we haven't considered either, and that's that Jack is a seasoned veteran. He's a seasoned cop. He's been in this division for so long. He's been the head of this division for so long, and can you imagine what he's seen? Like, the amount of neglect, the amount of abused kids, the amount of missing children, and at some point, he just decides to take it into his own hands at one point, like, just to kind of, I don't know, answer some kind of question that he himself asked of, like, is this going to make me feel better, for maybe not solving all of these cases, or, you know, whatever, you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like he's seen, like that. That's just something that we haven't considered yet, but I feel like it's an important part because he is shown to be this seasoned cop who's, you know, been through the ringer, and at some point he's just going to have to make a decision of, like, sorry, he's not going to have to make a decision, but he makes a decision of,
sure,
this is my decision now. This is making me feel better. This is my penance, sort of thing.
I feel like if Jack hadn't lost the kid, then I could actually agree with him more. I'd be like, this is a guy who has no personal feelings wrapped up in this. This is somebody who has just seen what the system can do, and he wants to break that cycle for once outside of this. But it's like, man, brother, this is just not the way to do it. You're going you have a woman that thinks her own fucking kid is dead. And it's like that's unbelievably insane. The fact that you would let a family live broken like that, knowing that, oh, but at least I got the kid out fine. And it's like, yeah, but you destroyed 4 or 5 lives in the process.
Sure.
And it's like, does that mean nothing? That fact is never even brought up. The fact that B and Helene and the whole community will never get any closure behind that. That's fucking insane.
Well, yeah, and Patrick and Angie's relationship, right? Because she leaves after this. So, but what you were saying is on point in terms of, I think it's in Jack's subconscious that he did this for himself. I don't think that he considers, because there is a moment here when he's speaking to Patrick, he says, I did what I did for the sake of the child. Then he takes a beat and he pauses and he's like, all right, I did some of it for myself. So, I think he genuinely is coming at it from a perspective of, I did it for the sake of the kid. But then in the back of his mind, somewhere in the deep recesses is like, I'm trying to plug a gap of my own here,
Right. Absolutely.
So after this, Patrick goes back to Angie, and Angie is also very much in the mindset of, do not call the police, right? Do not, like, she's happy, like she calls Helene arsenic, which is a very strong reaction. And we've seen this built up throughout the time of the movie, right? Like Angie can't stand Helene. She hates her attitude, she hates her decision making, she hates the way that she raised this child, and she just can't get on board.
Right.
And I guess she kind of gives him an ultimatum, right? You call the cops, we're done.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot of everybody here is playing a lot of judge. The judge and the jury, and ultimately it's funny because it's a lot of people playing the judge, but not a lot of people taking responsibility. Like, Jack does, he assumes the role of parent for this kid, but Jack doesn't do this if his daughter is alive. He just doesn't. He doesn't do this. I don't believe it at all. But that's why, like, where are we at the end of this movie? Like, where are we when all the dust settles? It's Patrick who's there with the kid, and he's doing it the best way and the right way, the legal way to do this. I think that it's kind of interesting that everybody, is so against him doing this, but at the end, he's the only one sitting with that fucking kid. Like that. That's one of the things that I love about the ending of this movie is that what I really thought was going to happen was that he was going to, they were going to take Amanda back and be like, yeah, but you don't get custody of this kid anymore. Like, you fucked it up, and we're going to leave him with a temporary guardian. And Patrick be like, I'll volunteer. And it's like, I'll volunteer foster this kid until we figure something out. Like that. I was hoping what the ending was, is that
that's the hopeful ending.
That's the hopeful ending. Well, it's the ending that I don't have to be a bad guy and I don't have to be a good guy with blinders on. If I'm going to be the good guy, I need to get my hands dirty with the people I feel responsible for. And I feel like we do get that kind of ending with him staying with Amanda. We see that this guy is never going to leave this town. He's probably always going to watch over this kid. It did leave me feeling pretty optimistic about it.
Absolutely. And then, dude, I love the shot of just Angie kind of like waiting, and then you don't know if he's called the cops, and then just in the background through the leaves you see the flashing lights. Oh, it's brilliant.
Great. Really great.
Brilliant stuff, man. Yeah, and that leads to the arrest of Jack Doyle and the uncovering of this conspiracy, and we can discuss whether we think Patrick made the right decision, because that's the main question. That's what people leave this movie with. Is this main question of, was this the right thing to do? Did Patrick make the right decision of sending Amanda back to her mother, back to this environment, away from Jack, who will probably, in all likeliness, be a nurturing father,
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough question, and one that I haven't really settled on.
I don't know, because it's kind of almost like the idea of the Punisher. Is the Punisher doing the right thing, even though he's breaking the law? He's putting a stop to these guys for good. It's a bit of like, I get where Patrick is coming from, because it's like, if you start taking the law into your own hands, it doesn't stop here. Once you realize you can do it once and get away with it, you're probably going to do it more than once. I just don't see him, like, if I cross that, it's kind of like Batman. If I cross that line and I go over there, then I know that I'll always have that ink on me forever. I won't ever be able to be clean of it. And just knowing that I did the right thing the right way, I didn't give in to this thing. Like, I feel like, it's like everybody else is Brad Pitt at the end of Seven, and he's Morgan Freeman. He's like, if you pull that trigger, like, you are going to basically play right into this guy's hand. And I don't know. I flip flop.
Do you remember there was a point in your life that you'd never seen Seven, and we watched it together and we talked about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's which now I see how it's inspired so many people. But ultimately I feel like there's just this I don't know, morally, I think morally on paper you can try to justify it, but the bodies you leave in the wake of that decision outweigh anything. This woman's an aunt, an uncle, an aunt, and the mother and all of the cousins and the friends are going to grow up thinking this kid is dead.
And Cheese's guy, Chris. I mean, that they were, quote, in the game, but I mean, they still died for what reason?
They didn't know. I mean, they didn't know for what reason they're dying. Like, I don't think anybody knew. I don't think Cheese or Chris or any of them knew. Oh yeah, we're dying because of this kid and stuff. And again, you're playing judge and jury and executioner, and you're saying, like, but look at us. We had no problem shooting a pedophile in the back of the head. Where do we draw the line? It again becomes this thing of like, if you're going to play by the law, then he never should have shot that guy in the back of the head, and we should have given him every chance to rehabilitate. But that's not the world we live in. So it does become. I think the movie, through the first big choice and the second big choice, kind of point out the hypocrisy where you can't be fine with one and bad with the other. It's either they're both bad or they're both good. You really have to make a choice and say, like, and I think that's one of the interesting things about Patrick, is that he is kind of conflicted with, like, do I morally think he did the right thing? Yeah, but even we both were like, dude, there's no way legally he gets out of this like scot-free. That's fucking insanity. And I think it's kind of the same thing at the end. There's no way that they keep this girl for the rest of their lives, and an issue never gets brought up. There's just no way. There's no way that happens. Eventually they're gonna be, that little girl's gonna be like, how come I don't have any aunts or uncles or cousins, or what's going on with that? Like, eventually a question will arise that you're not going to be able to answer, and it's all going to come out. Hey, look at all these fucking people that find out they had secret families, because their dad had another family in Boston, and through all these DNA tests and shit. Like, eventually, I love what Patrick says. He's I'm going to have to answer for that. And, I can't live with the fact that I just let this play out the way that it did. I think if Helene was a more severe case, I could maybe get on board with it a little bit more. But the fact that at the end, it's a somewhat cleaner apartment she's living in. She's actually kind of like taking care of herself to some degree. And yeah, she is dumping her kid off with, on friends and stuff. And she's going out, and she's going against the thing that she's even talked about. I swear to God, I'll never go out again. I'll never do drugs, like blah, 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 blah. I think that Patrick just knows that if I can't let this girl go with Jack, I'll never be able to live with it. But if I let her come back home, then it's kind of like, okay, well, if you want this pet, you've got to take care of it. Right. If you want to take this thing back home and be a charity case, I hate to talk about this kid like she's a pet, but like, that's kind of the closest thing I can bring it to, is like, if you want to make sure that this thing is okay, then you need to assume responsibility for it. And I think he does. I think that the ending is the best possible. I think the book ends on a very different note of him not even staying with the kid. From what I've read, I believe it's him walking out of the house and being like, not really 100% sure that he made the right decision, because that kid is going to be, back in a house where she could possibly be a victim to someone like Corwin, and being in that kind of environment makes her prey to a lot of predators. So yeah, that is really interesting. There's a lot of different angles to take it from.
I want to add two more spanners in the works. things that we haven't really considered yet. And again, I'm just kind of like looking at the arguments on both sides of this. I'm not making a decision or anything like that. My first point is Patrick is young, and this is the point that Jack is trying to impress upon him. He's like, when you reach my age and you've seen everything that I've seen, you're going to have a whole different perspective. You know, I think it was by design in the movie to have in the script that that Patrick say he's 31 years of age. You know, he hasn't seen the entire world yet. So sure, he's seen some fucked up shit, and he's done some fucked up shit, but he hasn't seen everything yet. You know, and like he hasn't come close to seeing everything yet, much less compared to Jack, right? So, you know, the decision that Patrick makes is made by a person who is only 31 years of age, who hasn't seen everything yet, who believes that there's hope out there still, right? Who believes that people can change, who believes that people like Helene can change. And, you know, Jack is very much in the position of people don't change. You know, people can't change. I've seen it all. This is the best case scenario for this girl. That was my first point. My other point is a bit more it's a bit more holistic, and it's a bit more preachy, and I don't mean to preach, and I really apologize if it sounds like I'm preaching, but the right to choose and the right to make a decision for yourself. So this is you know, you guys can choose to throw this out the window, completely up to you, but the decision for Helene to have a child, if she did decide to have a child, if she wasn't, like, let's assume she did, but to raise that child as your own, and to raise that child how you want to raise that child. I know the point that I'm making here is, but is that the best way to raise your child? Like, sure, okay, whatever, but as a mother, it's still on you and your decision to how to raise your kid. Honestly, like, that's like, it's a fundamental thing,
right,
of motherhood.
It's your right to fuck up.
Right, it's your right to fuck up, and for you to learn. As
much as I hate it.
Yeah, right. As much as I hate it, for sure.
And it's your kid that'll pay the fucking price for it. But yeah,
sure,
it's your right to fuck up.
That's what I'm saying. This point that I'm making here is a little contentious, because that's the entire crux of this movie. But it is, as a mother of a child, it is your right to fuck up, and it is your right to learn from those mistakes. And you know, you need to take the decisions that you make in stride. That's the 2 points that I wanted to make before we kind of like come to it's tough to make a decision of like, oh, you know, did Patrick make the right decision? It's just tough. That's the crux of this movie. I'm still on the fence. You know, any other day I could make a different decision as to what is the right decision here. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I had a manager a long time ago who I was talking about, like, man, I wish I could just get on the phone and tell a customer, like, hey, go fuck yourself. Like, you know, but he goes, well, Colin, you can do anything once. And he's like, doesn't mean you're going to get away with it or that you'll be able to do it a second time, but you know, you can fuck up that one time. He's like, I can't guarantee you there won't be consequences to it, but you know, that's the crazy part, is like you kind of are, and again, as much as we don't agree with it, as much as we hate the fact that it's Amanda who will have to pay that price, you know, we're talking about a fuck up. Like, if she ends up just being like a single mom of 2 kids, we're not talking about like if she winds up being fucking murdered or molested or, you know, all these other things that could possibly happen to her. She could end up in child protective services anyways, going to a foster family that just, you know, God knows some of the horror stories that come out about people that are bounced around in the system. Like, you know, her being a single mom with 2 kids is not best case scenario, but it's definitely not worst case scenario.
Sure.
You know, like, given that neighborhood and the people that are in it, it could be a whole hell of a lot worse, you know?
So, like I said a couple of hours ago at the beginning of this podcast, I did pose this question to people in the after party, and we did get some great answers. So I'm just going to go ahead and read some of those if that's cool. So the first person to respond was Jessica Vizina. So thank you so much, Jess. She says, "This is such a good question that I've thought so much about. I always cry so much at this movie. I know why Patrick did what he did. I really do, but I don't know if I could have done it. Brought a child from a happy, loving home to an essentially unsafe environment. I just can't be on Patrick's side. Taking your child is wrong, but at the end of the day, it's hard to not see it from the perspective of giving her a better life." She says, "Now I want to watch this movie ASAP. It's always been a real favorite of mine." And then she says, "I can't wait for the podcast. So much discussion to be had." Thanks so much, Jess. So Jonathan Marginson also answered this question. He says, "So ... Helene is basically my mother-in-law. At a young age, my wife got away from her. At a young age, my wife got away from her and went to live with her grandparents. Her siblings were not as fortunate and have hard lives. Subsequently, my nieces and nephews have had rocky childhoods, and I'll say this in defense of my in-law. She was beaten as a kid, so what chance did she have? To that end, I'm far more sympathetic to the likes of Doyle and Remy. I would not make the same choice as Patrick. I get he has the whole Catholic Church guilt thing, but it's a bit like Ned Stark with the whole honor thing, a moral code that overrides any level of pragmatism." That is astounding. That is a very astute observation about Helene potentially being abused as a child herself. Because things like this, they're often cyclical, right? They're often like you like the parent themselves are often a product of the system or a product of the environment. Yeah, that's interesting. So he says, yeah, she was beaten as a kid, so what chance did she have? That's wild. And I didn't, you know what, man, I didn't even consider the whole, and it's so heavy-handed. The movie has this in so many points, Patrick being a Catholic, right? His like religion coming into it.
Right.
Which is another thing, which is the whole, you know where I stand on religion and how I guess deeply rooted some people can be and deeply stubborn people can be about their beliefs because of religion.
Right.
But I think that is another aspect that plays into Patrick's decision. Daniel, so thank you so much for your comment, Jonathan. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you getting personal with that one. So thank you.
Right. Yeah, that really hits home. Thank you.
Danielle says, number one, The Town is probably my favorite movie that Ben Affleck's done because I love a good heist film. Gone Baby Gone is probably number two. And she says, God, the last 10 minutes of this movie is gut-wrenching. I remember being blown away when I realized what had happened and what was going on. And I remember being torn in the moment when he was going to take Amanda back and Angie and Jack begged him not to. To this day, I'm not sure if it was the right move. I think he made the right decision for himself and his character, but I'm not sure it was the right decision for Amanda. It almost felt like he made the decision more for himself than he did for her. I'm not sure if that makes sense. And it's been a while.
It definitely does.
I'm not sure if it's been and it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but it felt like a selfish decision on his part and something that he felt he needed to do rather than taking into consideration what was best for the little girl in the scenario. Now that's interesting because Danielle's comment is a little bit more. I'm not going to say aggressive, but yeah, it kind of like paints Patrick as more of a villain or more of a antagonist in this decision making process because like there is an element of selfishness here. Like there is an element of like, well, on both men's parts, right? Like I mean, we talked about Jack.
Yeah.
We talked about Jack kind of like being like, look, I did this for myself, but like also Patrick's doing this for himself as well.
Right. That's what I was saying. Like nobody even bothers to ask Amanda where she wants to go. And ultimately, yeah, I think there is a guilt. There is that Catholic Irish guilt thing of, of there always being a higher power to kind of like answer to. Of just like, no, like if we don't live by a code of like rules that everybody agrees to, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, like, look what it cost us to get Amanda to Jack. Like we had to murder people. We had to, Remy died. died, Nick died, Cheese died, Chris died, Ray died. Like, how many people did we have to fucking kill to get here? And it's like, on what? The possibility that her life might be this way? The possibility? Like, if you'd have told me it is 100% fact she is going to end up being raped or murdered or become this awful person later on in life, then I would say, yeah, absolutely. Like, give her a better life. But it's not the thing is that you're already writing this girl off, that she doesn't have the strength to rise above her environment, that it is impossible for her to break that cycle, and
to make something for herself.
Right.
Yeah.
You're automatically deeming her as this pathetic, weak thing that stands no chance of and you know what? She very well might not. Like, I know plenty, but my dad was the youngest of 4 kids, raised by a single mom, an alcoholic dad who beat the shit out of him. And then, my dad ended up going to college, paying his own way through, starting his own business, and totally my life was nothing compared to what my dad's was like. But how many people probably wrote him off as like, yeah, you're going to end up being a piece of shit like your stepdad. And that's not fair to the person in question, and the fact that you're not even you're making all the choices for this person, you're assuming a lot about them.
Yes. And if Jack has his way, Amanda probably never has the opportunity to tell that story to her kids, right? I mean, like,
right. Mm-hmm. I don't think I don't think that the possibility of what's to come is worth the concrete murder that we have to go through to get there.
Sure.
Just if you want to argue about morality, then
right. If murder's a sin, yeah,
right. If we're so worried about, oh, she might have a bad life, and it's like, yeah, but you did kill 5 people to get here. Like, there's no argue about that. If you want to talk, oh, well, they were bad people. What's bad? Did they molest kids? Were they drug dealers? Even the drug dealer said, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with kids. Like, they have some moral center. So, like, at the end of the day, yeah, I think everybody's kind of making decisions for themselves, but Patrick's is the one that I think is technically the most, like, moral, whatever that means.
Sure, yeah. But again, this is a movie that asks this question that I've never seen before, or even like in this way of like, it does it in a way of it shows you the environment that Amanda is in, and it shows you the decisions that are made by Helene and the people around her. Enough so that when you get to this point in the movie that you have enough evidence to lean one way or the other. And I think that structure of the movie is fantastic.
Absolutely.
But man, that's pretty much it, right? So the movie kind of ends with Helene sort of going out, kind of like regressing to her old ways. She's met a man. She's obviously much happier now that Amanda's back, but she's about to go out and she's probably going to backslide, right? I mean, like, there's nothing for us to indicate. I mean, there's nothing to indicate that she's going to continue to neglect Amanda. I mean, I'm sure that she's entirely grateful for her return, and that she will look after Amanda a bit more than she did before, but there's nothing to indicate one way or the other. We've only got one situation here. But, when she leaves, when Patrick says, does Dottie know that she's going to look after her? Well, she's about to find out. And it's just like, well, what's your backup plan here?
Right.
Like, you're going to trust this, in essence, a stranger, right? Because they only met however long ago, to look after your kid. Even though that there was literally a child who got stolen by a fucking pedophile and got killed in this movie.
Right.
Like, you're gonna leave this man with her?
Right.
Okay, Helene, cool. But yeah, the movie ends on this line of like, like they talk about her toy, right? Like, they talk about like this innocent thing, and the last shot is just it's sad. It's sad, but it's happy at the same time. It's a very weird mixture of emotions.
No, absolutely. And I think that, I feel hopeful about it, because it's like, you're worried that Amanda's going to end up like Jack's daughter. And then you're like, yeah, but Jack's daughter never had someone like Patrick, like being the guardian angel. Yeah, kind of thing. So
Jinx, buy me a Coke.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much Gone Baby Gone.
That's pretty much Gone Baby Gone, man. I cannot be more happy with the conversation that this movie yielded. So,
oh yeah,
this was awesome.
If anything, I think this movie definitely has its problems, but it's definitely got a lot of meat on the bone in terms of in terms of conversation.
Definitely. We both knew going into this that this wasn't going to be a lighthearted comedy fucking skit show of an episode.
Right. Yeah. This ain't Edward Scissorhands.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But guys, thank you so much for listening to our nearly 3-hour episode on Gone Baby Gone. Really appreciate it. This has been the longest one that we've done in a while. It's been a while since we've done one this long, so really appreciate you guys holding in there. We hope that the conversation was fruitful. We hope we got you guys, thinking a little bit. We really appreciate this movie. I know I really do appreciate this movie. We'll do some closing thoughts. I've already read all the comments that I had. Thank you, a huge thank you to everyone in the after party for commenting. Because
absolutely.
This was awesome, man. This really spurred some great conversation, so really, really appreciate it. That's the most I can ask from you guys. What else I can ask from you guys is $5 for Patreon. Patreon, Midnight Double Feature. Patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature. Support the show. Colin, give me your closing thoughts on Gone Baby Gone.
I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's an absolutely great movie. But I do appreciate the questions that it ends up kind of asking and the fun that comes from kind of chasing the morality tale around the maypole. All in all, I think it's a very solid movie. A little bit overrated, honestly, 95%. I was like, I don't know about that. But all in all, I think a very solid movie and definitely a good conversation starter. And I think movies like this kind of really inform your opinions about people and who decides what. It really kind of, you can tell a lot from a person on how they land at the end of this movie, I think. So I think it's really good. I think it's solid.
Yeah, I think this movie kind of transcends the barrier and is pretty great. The 95, I mean, look, Rotten Tomatoes works in weird ways in terms of like it doesn't mean 90 it doesn't mean all critics rated this 95 out of 100. It means 95% of critics like this. So
right.
I don't want people to get if it's over 60%, that means they liked it. That means it's fresh. So that means 95% of the critics liked it. Which, I mean, how can you not? It's a good movie to like. I mean, it's tough to hate. So, I really dig this movie, man. I think it asks moral questions that you don't really see a lot in movies like this. And there was that some of these questions have an overlap in Prisoners, with the kidnapping of the children.
Hell yeah.
And it's kind of like a world of movies that I love to live in. I love having these conversations. I really do. I think it's incredibly well acted. I think it's one of the best directorial debuts I've seen from a director. You say it's overrated. I think it's underseen. I think a lot of people haven't seen this movie.
I will a little over I think a little overrated, but definitely underseen. More people need to watch it.
For sure, yeah. I'm excited to see where Ben Affleck goes, man. I mean, The Town is an incredible film, which we've covered already. I really want to cover Argo. Argo is a movie that I really want to cover, but I want to read the book first, so we'll see you in 5 years.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for Air, which is getting a release a bit later this year. So, man, that's Gone Baby Gone. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Please remember to support the show. Rate and review us on iTunes. If you are so inclined, please donate $5 a month so you can listen to the bonus episodes in our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Midnight and follow us on our socials. Be a part of the conversation. We had a great bunch of commenters who really spurned the conversation in this episode. So really appreciate it, and we'd love more people to join it. Colin, anything else to say before we head off and record our final Breaking Bad episode for the season?
No, not really. Just thank you guys for hanging in all the way to the end. This has been a lot of fun to record.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. We will see you next fortnight here on Minute Double Feature.